Welcome to Norse Code, the number one podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. I am your host and producer. My name is James Pagoshnik. Thank you guys so much for listening. And on the other end of the tin cannon string, we have our analyst and co-host. You know him from numerous blogs and podcasts around the internet, most notably from theathletic.com. He is Mr. Useful Human, Arif Hassan. Arif, I cannot remember a time I have watched a football game and turned off the TV in such disgust and anger, and that the Vikings were not involved. This was just an ugly game.
Yeah. If you check my tweet history, which why the hell would you do that? That's psychotic behavior. There's clearly a moment in the middle of the game where I just took a nap. I just didn't watch the middle of the game, and the score didn't change. Is the nuts part? It was 13-0 for the longest time. I wake up and I'm like, wow, I guess the Falcons defense held up for no reason, not to anyone's benefit.
No.
And then I think, was it the second interception I tapped out? They apparently threw 3 more interceptions from 3 different quarterbacks. So J.C. Jackson, Matt Ryan interception, then an unknown interception for Josh Rosen, and then I believe Kyle Van Noy had a pick 6 for... it was Van Noy had the Josh Rosen interception. Then there was a 4th interception for Felipe Franks, who is on the roster as a quarterback and is mostly there to do weird tight end stuff for the Falcons this year. But they're one of the only teams, if not the only team, that is regularly making active 3 quarterbacks in a game. And the fact that all 3 threw an interception in the same game, and I missed it, I'm fine missing it. But it's nuts that happened. It was
magical.
We decided to bounce after the J.C. Jackson interception. We're let's just record early.
Yeah. I tapped out. I tried to tap out earlier and started working on the show notes instead. And 20 minutes later, I was like, yep, this game is being called and I kind of suck. We're done here.
Yeah, you started writing the show notes at the Devin McCourty interception.
Yeah.
and then the game was background noise to you, and then the J.C. Jackson interception occurred, and I was like, all right, I'm heading downstairs to record.
Yep, we're done here. Well, welcome to this episode of Norse Code. Hope you guys are all doing well. We have quite the preview with Justice that we'll be getting into in just a little bit, previewing the Green Bay game that'll be happening this Sunday. Also, we have a mailbag to go over, but first off, I just want to thank you guys so much. We got a lot of nice notes from you guys about episode 400, either that you enjoyed the show or just congratulations on making it to 400 episodes. Thank you guys so much. We could not have made it to this point without you guys, so thank you so much for listening. We did have a nice little portion of the show dedicated basically to our memories of the show and things that we loved, remembering and everything, and had a nice little thank you to all you guys. So thank you guys so much. And if you would like to support the show financially, you can do so in a couple of different ways. You can go to patreon.com/NorseCode and donate there. It helps keep the show ad-free. And you get bonus material. We just released episode 41 of the bonus stuff. This was an hour and a half of bonus material. So if you're not sick of Arif and James this week, go for it. There's an hour and a half of new stuff waiting there for you. Next bonus episode will include all of the pre-show for the live show, and which was great, and the pre-show and dusty shenanigans of episode 400. So check that out. That'll be great. That'll be episode 42 of the bonus stuff. So check that over at patreon.com/NorseCode. Also, you can go to paypal.me/NorseCode as well and do a one-time donation. Or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com, like so many of you lovely people have, and pick up a number of things, whether it be greeting cards, whether it be baby onesies, whether you're just going out and trying to confuse and annoy your brother with your face all over his Christmas presents this year. Check out Norse Code.
Don't know who would do that.
Yeah, not a clue. Norsecode.threadless.com. Obviously, we have the original logo, and we have the Arif. So check that out. A couple people to thank real quick before we start. Tanner Blaze, apologies. I missed you last episode. I'm making sure not to miss you here. Tanner, Thank you so much for donating to the Patreon. Also, Jack Payton, who wrote a nice note here. He says, thank you very much for all of the great content, for your help introducing me and educating me about football and the misery and the hilarity of Vikings fandom over the years. I generally don't subscribe to monthly memberships as I value my money like the Ravens value random pointless preseason records. But you guys are an exception. I'm more than happy to make as I get my money's worth and 10 times more. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jack, so much for listening. And Dustin Roberts, who has a comment and a question. He says, been a listener for about 10 months, and I'm sick of missing all of this extra content. So here I am, content the crap out of me. Skol Vikes. Thank you, Dustin, so much. Here's an hour and a half from me to you. Check it out. Episode 41.
Did you pick a week to decide to get content the crap out of?
Yeah, you basically got a full-length episode out of this. Also, his question is, for the Aaron Rodgers resentment corner, do you think Rodgers will still be rusty coming into US Bank Stadium? And if not, what is Zimmer going to have to scheme up to beat that aggressive offense and superstar out D? I think that Anthony Barr is going to have to break his collarbone.
Yeah, this is not an endorsement of that, by the way. This is just kind of a statement of, unfortunately, it is the case that Anthony Barr will have to cause another injury, which is just regrettable. You hate to see it.
You do.
But that's the only way. No,
I could be fine with that. I think that Anthony Barr would find it really funny.
Well, I mean, I think that he kind of did, but then didn't express it publicly. This is speculation. I'm not reporting. But But
if it happened a second time, he would just have to.
There would be a there. Actually, so I just wrote the piece that I just wrote about how the Vikings have done well against Aaron Rodgers, at least relative to how Aaron Rodgers does against everybody else. Someone in the comments was like, "Hey, you have to correct the record. That includes a start with Rodgers," which I pointed out. It's not explicitly, but but that includes the game where he only threw 4 passes or 2 passes, and he got destroyed by a cheap shot from Anthony Barr, which you can say a lot of things about that game and how much it counts or doesn't count, and fair enough, it's not a true start in the same sense that starts are, but it wasn't a cheap shot. That was just a play which at the time was legal. The reason that we have all these bad roughing the passer penalties now is because that play explicitly was not illegal. So,
yeah, it was
not that law is a great determinant of morality here, but it's very clearly he was just bringing the quarterback to the ground.
Yeah, it wasn't one of those 80s and 90s QBs getting their clock cleaned hits.
Right. It's not one of those ESPN classic highlight reel. Exactly. Yeah. We were thinking the same thing.
It wasn't one of those where you hear the NFL band playing in the background with the trumpet and the tuba, and meanwhile Dan Fouts is just getting crucified.
Right.
No.
Yeah, someone's suplexing Phil Simms, right?
Right on his head, and he's right back out there the next play with with the grass still sticking inside of the face mask. Face mask.
No, but that's sad. Don't watch those.
Speaking of sad, we're going to get right into this episode. So we have a long preview for the Packers game with Justice Mosqueda that Arif recorded earlier today. Justice, of course, is... well, how would you introduce Justice exactly?
Well, so we have an exclusive interview with an owner of an NFL team. And so I'm really happy to bring on owner of the Green Bay Packers, Justice Mosqueda, who also happens to write, and this is a conflict of interest, but he does happen to write about the Packers for the Acme Packing Company. And I've determined that it would be, as a minority owner of the Kansas City Chiefs, it would be kind of hypocritical of me to deny him a platform, though I myself use my platform as an owner to write about the NFL. It would be hypocritical of me to deny him that platform as an owner to write about the NFL. So that is the way I'm choosing to describe Justice in this episode. We have described him in a number of ways in other episodes.
And a number of ways off microphone.
Right. Yeah.
Not-
I would say
not on
that
tape.
justice resists description is maybe the best way to put it.
And let's go with that. So from Acme Packing Company, we have Justice Mosqueda on the recording to discuss the. Let's just be honest. He's going to defend his NFT stuff. So enjoy that, and we'll see you on the other side for the mailbag.
All right, we have an exclusive interview with an NFL owner today. Remarkable that we were able to do it. Unfortunately, it wasn't the Wilf family. It's someone engaged in shockingly less felonious but more scummy behavior. Justice Mosqueda, and owner of the Green Bay Packers, technically a nonprofit incorporated in Wisconsin that is taxed like a for-profit, but releases taxes like a nonprofit. How does it feel to be capital and suppress labor?
Look, I don't know any of the things that you just said. I will say I am not paying 1/32 of whatever Kroenke's settlement with the city of St. Louis is going to be.
I mean, it sounds like you are. I mean, it sounds like it's coming out of your pocket.
I won't be doing it. Come and get it. Come and take it.
Are you gonna take on the city of St. Louis as well?
No, they just got to find me. It's like traffic. It's like traffic tickets and parking tickets. Like, okay, sure,
Sure.
find me. Come find me.
All right. So, Justice, you're currently in Portland, Oregon, right?
Yeah, right. This very second. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. At the moment, you're.
Do you have eyes on me? That's crazy.
All right. So, what are the benefits of this very fungible, non-transferable token get you?
So I got it so I could put NFL owner in my Twitter bio, and
I also put NFL owner in my Twitter bio, and it didn't cost me $300.
Wow. Well, I have a piece of paper that I can hang behind me when I'm doing videos for hashtag content.
Yeah,
And
my
I needed
printer
stuff to
works.
put on
I
the
can
window.
just print it.
Well, look, that was it. I knew what the exchange was. I gave them the money. They gave me the piece of paper. No one was no one was hoodwinked in this. I don't think that I have a controlling share of the Green Bay Packers organization, but I have the damn piece of paper, and you can't take it away from me. And I get to call myself an owner.
So the ownership doesn't confer you any benefits. It doesn't move you up the season ticket line. It doesn't give you any extra perks. You don't receive any dividend of the shares.
I can get into a part of the
you get a once a year
Packers
ownership
shop
meeting, right?
No, I can go into the Packers shop into an area where they sell the exact same stuff.
How many times have you been to Lambeau?
0 times. I have not been yet. I was supposed to go 2 times this summer, and SB Nation did not approve my travel fast enough. I was going to go for family
When
night.
did you submit your travel?
Dude, months ahead of time.
Yeah,
buddy.
what BS?
No. You can ask Gina. You know Gina. You could talk to Gina. I was supposed to go to the damn Jets joint practice. They hit me up on the Wednesday of that joint practice, and they said, maybe we'll approve you for travel. And I was like, what? And that was, I went like a month ahead. I was a late ad, so I'm not even going to blame him for that. But look, there was an effort on my end to get to Lambeau Field twice this summer.
So like in the grand narrative history of Justice Mosqueda, you were once again late.
No, I was early. I thought
you just said you were late. You said you were late.
I was a late hire. I got added post-draft.
Get your story straight.
I was ready to go before the draft, and they were like, let's hold on, let's wait, let's onboard you until after the draft. I said, okay, that's fine with me. And then Rodgers Watch started, and I tried to get to Lambeau. They wouldn't let me. That's it. That's my story.
That's your story. Okay. So you the only benefit that you can tangibly get from this is that you can go to just like one corner of the Packers official store in a city you've never visited in your life.
That's absolutely right. But we'll visit in my life, and I will be going to Door County because
what is the difference between an NFT and NFTs are transferable.
This isn't bad for the environment, and we're not using it for money laundering. Bang.
Well, I'm actually pretty concerned about that second question. I don't know about that.
We're not using it for money laundering yet.
Okay. It is probably not as bad for the environment. I mean, you can plant new trees, but
nothing is good for the environment. This podcast isn't good for the environment. So.
Well, it's definitely not good for like the football environment. That's for sure. All All right, so now you get grouped in the ownership class, which means that you support the owners during lockouts. And so you're
No,
on
not
Manfred's
true.
side. You're on Manfred's side when he said that a lockout is good, but a strike is bad, right? Like Robert
Yeah,
Manfred.
what the hell was that quote? He was like, "Yeah, strike is different than if there's a strike and you miss game."
An
That was
off-season
kind of odd.
lockout that moves the process forward is different than a labor dispute that costs games.
Well, then pay the players, bud. That's what this is about. I don't know if you realize that.
This is extremely finding a way to say the quiet part loud without even saying the quiet part. That's impressive.
Yeah, but
that's you now.
No, I don't care about the owner. Look,
Wait,
I got a funny piece of paper. I have a funny piece of paper.
Pays Roger Goodell's salary.
Well, I don't like that.
Okay, cool.
I don't
Great.
like that.
So that's what you opted into. That's the system you bought into. Justice Mosqueda famously against player empowerment. Let's talk about the Packers. So Aaron Rodgers could miss this game maybe, but not for the reasons we thought he might have been able to miss this game a week ago. Before it was because he is even less of a courageous take your stance and plant your flag person than even Kirk Cousins. He's got less of a spine than Kirk Cousins, and approach the vaccine issue from the opposite direction. Like Kirk Cousins is like, I have blind faith. I don't really want to think about the science behind it too much. And Aaron Rodgers was like, I'll think about the science, but in the wrong way. I'm a free thinker. He's Kanye. So that he could miss this game, but then I'm also hearing he also has missed every practice since the 22nd. What's going on? What's with his toe? He did not participate the last two practices.
Yeah, every practice since the first, I believe, but they've also had wonky situations. So, like, the way to think about it is the Week 7 game was Arizona Thursday Night Football. That week was already weird, and then Devonta Adams got COVID. It ended up pushing practices to, like, basically virtual meetings that week. Then, obviously, there was the COVID and then the toe issue. So, for the better part...
Is the toe issue new?
The toe issue was a surprise. The toe issue must have happened at some point during his COVID recovery because he wasn't on the injury report for a toe issue before then. Pat McAfee and AJ Hawk tried to grill him and get him to answer questions about the toe. He was not budging. The reporters in person in Green Bay tried to get him to talk about the toe. He was not budging. So this is a mystery toe injury. He did say yesterday that he is definitely going to play on Sunday, and it's just like a how he feels type of thing.
Do we know which toe? Is it plant foot toe or is it drag foot toe?
You know what? We actually don't know which toe. I don't think
that's pretty important, right?
It's a mystery toe injury. I'm telling you, no one the big story in Green Bay. This whole year has been this toe. No one's talking about anything else other than the toe.
So it could be on either leg, and it could be any toe. It could be like the pinky toe.
You would think so. How important is the pinky toe? Because like in your hands, right? Like your bottom fingers are actually like a lot more important than your top fingers. Like 80% of your grip strength comes from your bottom two fingers, your ring finger and your pinky. So I don't know. What toe is more important?
I think in terms of throwing mechanics, I think your big toe matters the most, and then successively goes down. So the pinky toe might matter the least, actually, in this case.
Let's chop off your big toe and see. Let's do science.
A lot of people have had their big toe chopped off. That science has already been done.
All right, fine. You win.
All right. Eugenics scientist Justice Mosqueda on Aaron Rodgers. Eugenics. We don't know which toe.
I didn't.
Cool. So, why has Rodgers' performances been so weird this year? Because he's had insanely good games and he's had some like really big fart clunkers.
Yeah, they have been on this like training wheels offense, I would say, a lot more than they ever have with Rodgers. I think it's just like the structure of the league now. The league is getting out of single high looks. They're getting into more two high looks. That in and of itself is going to lead to more quick game and runs and like play action shots just by the nature of like how the sport is played. So Rodgers is kind of almost played through like 3 life cycles of defenses in the NFL. Like he came into the league, it was a 2-high league. Then it transitioned to a single high league. Now it's transitioning back to a 2-high league. So I think it's more of a product of that. Like you look at the stat, look at the analysis of quarterbacks, like good quarterbacks across the league, and everyone's saying like, oh, our quarterback is individually being impacted by too high defenses. Teams are getting into too
we
high.
We saw that with Russell Wilson 2 years ago. Patrick Mahomes now.
Yes. Josh Allen, like every single one of these guys. Like, it's just an answer. Like, teams defensively, what they're telling you on the field. I just broke down the Packers defensive performance against the Seahawks, where they goose egg Russell Wilson with Coach Vass. I don't know if you know Coach Vass.
Coach Vass is fantastic, and I'm happy he's healthy.
Yep. I broke down defense with him on his YouTube page for about 3 hours. That whole Seahawks game, we watched every single snap and broke it down.
Excruciating.
The overwhelming evidence is that defenses are basically telling both quarterbacks, the offensive staff, fans, etc., that they don't really care about stopping the run anymore, and they are just proactively trying to stop the passing game. And that's the league that we're in. And I think that's why you're seeing a dip in explosive plays. You're seeing a dip in passing efficiency, and I don't think Aaron Rodgers is exempt from that. The other thing, too, is the deep speed stuff, like Marcus Valdes-Scantling, obviously being out for a while. He was their only deep threat, really. Kind of impacted that, and then everyone is just double covering Devonta, so you don't have a deep shot threat, and everyone's double covering or shading or rotating coverage to Devonta, and there's not a lot of other guys who can get open. So
then what is Rodgers doing well in his fantastic games then? Or teams like,
just
is it like with the Raiders refusing to play cover 2 against Mahomes, or what's happening?
No, I think it's just like the variance of play action shots and like when you can get on the same page with guys. And again, like Rodgers had a couple of plays against Seattle that were weird. You got to remember that game. There was snow.
Seattle
early.
has like the worst pass defense in the league. That game is weird, man.
Yeah, that game was odd. There were plays that you can tell ball placement was the issue. Like he had some deep shots to like Lazard and stuff like that usually he completes. If you watch the field goal attempt that Mason Crosby missed, which was not an operation issue, which was nice, or operation or protection issue, is just a kicker missing a ball because of the wind. That was a new way for the Packers to miss a field goal this year, which is kind of nice to see on the relative scale of missing field goals. The wind impacted it. I think the wind was an actual factor in the game. Rodgers said as much. Like he was unable to judge if the wind was behind him or in front of him, basically, because of the way the stadium is structured. So I think that was just kind of like a weather game to a certain extent. And, he hasn't really had a normal practice week since Washington. And that was like week 7, I think. So I don't know. It's just a weird situation for the team to be in. It's nice to see them actually be able to lean on a run game and a defense, though. I mean, that's a new one for me as a Packers fan.
Well,
Packers
they don't have Aaron
owner,
Jones. So,
yeah, but A.J. Dillon's the GOAT, so.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
A.J. Dillon's a better back.
Okay, we're going to investigate that question in a second when we get to running backs. I got a couple more quarterbacks question because that's a fascinating take to tease into. Okay, so does that mean that the differences between quarterbacks are flattening and therefore the importance of the quarterback is diminishing ever so slightly? The quarterback's still obviously the most important position, but like
I think quarterbacks, it's more about being more well-rounded than having kind of the flash plays, if that makes any sense. Like I think this league is better built for a quarterback. Like, I mean, even
with these defenses,
you're
saying you need quarterbacks that can hit singles as well as home runs.
Yes, 100%. And that's been one of the big issues with Patrick Mahomes beyond Travis Kelce not looking like himself and being treated like a receiver instead of a tight end.
Yeah. Cool. Is next year's Packers quarterback going to be fully vaccinated?
I don't think so. I don't think Aaron's going to get vaccinated because for whatever reason he's like, yeah, I think it's going to sterilize you. So I don't know how you change his mind on that. Like, so
Rodgers is going to stay, is what you're saying?
Yeah, he doesn't get a control where he goes next year.
Well, I thought the whole deal with the renegotiation of the contract was that he does.
Well,
was that misreported? Did we get fake news media by it?
So the fake news media reported that, and then they asked Rodgers in his opening presser when he returned to the Green Bay Packers if he can change or he can decide where he's going to play next year, and he said, "I don't think that's the understanding." So,
all right, Justice Mosqueda,
he's still under contract,
calling hardworking journalists the Lugan Pressa. That's good to hear.
I don't know
Let's
what
talk
that
about
means.
running backs. All right, let's talk about running backs. What do you mean that Aaron Jones is like the touchdown leader among running backs for whatever time span you want to use? He always gets tons of touchdowns. He's got a great efficiency for a running back. What do you mean that AJ Dillon is a better running back?
He's a better. Watch the film. Quadzilla's a better running back.
You have to describe with your words on
He's
a
a better
podcast.
inside runner. He's a better inside runner. He's better with the ball in his hand.
Is it just because he's got more power? Because Aaron Jones is not
Yes.
lacking in power.
I don't know. Like if you're talking, like if you just break down the backs into like 3 trait bins, which is like passing game contribution, inside run, outside run. I think the weakest trait between either of those 2 backs, so like 6 traits combined between those 2 backs, the worst trait of them is Aaron Jones' inside run. Like I think AJ Dillon can do everything Aaron Jones can do. He's a little bit less explosive on the edge. But in terms of having him as an every down back, I think if AJ Dillon got hurt, it would change a whole lot more in the Packers playbook than with Aaron Jones out, for whatever that's worth.
I mean, the Packers playbook wasn't using AJ Dillon all that much.
He has what was it? He
had 21 carries against Seattle, but like
he has the second most. He has the second most carries for any back that hasn't started a game in the league yet. This season.
But I mean, like all the committee backs have accidentally started games. Like I don't like.
That's what I mean.
Kareem Hunt has started games. Alexander Madison.
That's why you're like
games.
Seattle. Like he had carries against Seattle. Well, it's because Aaron Jones.
That's the only game where he had more than 20 carries. He's only had 4 games above 10 carries.
He gets touches. I'm gonna pull up the snap counts right now. Look.
Okay, so he gets snaps but not carries. Is that what you're telling me?
No,
is that what I'm hearing?
But he also
he's part of the game plan. He gets snaps but not carries.
Oh, enough. Enough. He's played 230 snaps.
What does that tell me?
He plays a lot. He's played more more snaps than Marcus Valdes-Scantling. He's a good player. I promise. You'll see. You'll see on Sunday.
But he also gets special team snaps. He's got like at least 10 special team snaps.
He's on punt team. He's on punt protection.
Yeah. So if you tell me he has 230 snaps and he's like 8 of those snaps on special teams, like
those are offensive snaps, buddy. Pro Football Reference splits those out. Listen, shouts to Pro Football Reference.
All right, so can AJ Dillon catch the ball?
Yes. He is in fact mossed people. So yeah, AJ Dillon can catch the ball, and he's a very large man. He's 247 pounds.
All right, so who's a better receiver, CJ Ham or AJ Dillon? Did you see CJ Ham moss?
The Vikings fans with CJ Ham is funny. I'm actually happy you guys have CJ Ham. CJ Ham is a fun player. AJ Dillon is a better player. I'm taking AJ Dillon.
I'm not going to actually contest that one. That one's fair.
I'm happy you guys have CJ Ham. Like having a fun fullback is fun.
Who's the most fun to you, not to Packers fans? To you, who's the most fun fullback the Packers have had?
Oh, William Henderson.
Wow. Okay.
I guess like Kuhn was kind of a fan favorite. Kuhn was funny because it was like every playoff game he's getting one goal line touch somehow, it's a good reoccurring bit. But William Henderson was probably better.
Yeah. Henderson was like a mid-round draft pick fullback, right? Like
that was when two back was huge, and it was like that was when like the NFL was throwing to fullbacks more than tailbacks. You know what I mean? It was like Larry Centers.
Yeah.
Receptions, and you're like, what? What was this league?
All right, and then the Packers also have. Is he just a returner? Patrick Taylor? What is he doing?
Yeah, so Patrick Taylor came off of the practice squad. He was kind of an interesting guy. So he's actually kind of like somewhat of a redemption story. Like Patrick Taylor was part of that 3-back rotation at Memphis, was actually given like a mid-round grade his junior year. Probably could have gone into the draft. Got hurt. Basically, they messed up his foot, and then Dr. McKenzie in Green Bay fixed his foot. So he essentially spent a redshirt year in Green Bay last season, didn't practice until December, never made it up from the 53, finally made it up from the 53. He is a very talented player. He was very talented in college. It was just always like, hey man, this dude probably isn't going to play for a year, which is why he ended up going undrafted. And big running backs with foot injuries, there's a ton of history there of them not lasting very long. But he's like a 6'2", 220 running back who can contribute in the passing game as much as in the run game. So there are pretty high hopes for Taylor. I think he's pretty close to Dylan in terms of like skill set. I wouldn't say he's necessarily there in terms of like pure talent and especially as a pass catcher. But when Taylor is in the game, he's not a marked man. I will say, though, this is kind of the game where Green Bay's running back depth is going to be tested a little bit because Taylor obviously got his first carries last week. Kylan Hill, their draft pick.
IR.
Yep, he went on IR. Aaron Jones is almost certainly not going to play. The team has talked about him like he's not going to play, even though that hasn't been officially ruled. And then Raquel Armstead, who missed all of last season due to COVID issues, where he
went to the hospital like 3 times.
He went to the hospital multiple times. He's on the practice squad. He was protected. He's probably going to move up. They're going to announce it on like Saturday or something like that. And he's probably going to be the third back.
Kareth White.
No, Kareth White just got into town. They worked him out this week and then signed him to the practice squad. So they protected Raquel Armstead. I'm sure that he's actually going to get into the game.
Meaningful, yeah. And then 3rd round pick Josiah DeGuara
gets yelled at a lot. Dude gets yelled at a lot. He's not a fullback though. He's a tight end. He's a full-blown tight end for the team.
Okay.
He is an interesting guy. You're going to see him lined up off of the ball a lot, and then he's going to work across the formation. So like when he comes into the game, that's when they're running like counter and stuff
so he's
like
an
that.
H.
Yes, 100%. That's exactly how to think about him. But he doesn't actually line up as like a fullback or anything. He's more of like, I guess what you would call like a move tight end, but he's not like a matchup tight end, if those things mean anything.
Yeah, I mean, the Vikings have always had one of those, like David Morgan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so long as we're talking about tight ends, is Jordan Love the quarterback of the future?
Wow. Are you saying he has a tight end? Well, I don't get it. Jordan Love, I think the team put him in a really bad spot. Did you watch the Kansas City game?
No, I refuse to.
Okay, that's fair. Imagine the Kansas City Chiefs and Spagnuolo with, all of his play call. He doesn't have very good players, but he does have decent play calls against a rookie quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. They try to pressure him in all sorts of ways. And Jordan Love was basically asked, hey, complete a shot play so that they get out of these pressure looks. And they simply were not able to complete a shot play. And it wasn't until...
That's all he did, though, in college.
Yeah, it's different against NFL players, Arif. I don't know if you know that, but
you saying Utah State didn't have the schedule to?
Yeah, the Mountain West Conference is a little bit different than the Kansas City Chiefs, who have been to back-to-back Super Bowls. So that's what I've been told. But yeah, basically, they were hoping that he would complete a shot play and get him out of those defenses for probably the first 2.5 quarters. It wasn't until probably midway through the 3rd quarter when they drove down the field with like RPOs. They were going zone runs. They were running quick game, and that was a whole lot better. The coaching staff took ownership afterwards, and Love also took ownership of not being able to complete deep shots. So I think that's kind of like a good learning experience, I guess. It was just kind of torturous to watch and realize the coaching staff say like, oh, this was a bad game plan, and we kind of hung ourselves out to dry, which was kind of the case in week 1 against the New Orleans Saints too. So,
well, I mean, before the game, Lafleur was asked, like, is he ready to start? And he was like, I guess we'll see. Yeah.
Well, hey man, it's not a normal week. Yeah. None of this stuff is normal. So,
yeah, I mean, I can't imagine
but they
what it
covered,
must be like
but they
have
covered
a team deal with COVID issues during the season. That must suck. I wouldn't know. All right, so the Packers have long had issues in fielding like talent at tight end in terms of receiving. But now, but they discovered Bob Tonyan, but now he's not going to be available, right?
Yes.
So it's like what, Mercedes Lewis, who is still in the league?
Yeah, so like Mercedes is a Y. Like he's a true Y. They use him more as a run blocker than anything. Josiah is kind of their pass catcher, but it seems like him and Rodgers in terms of communication are often not on the same page, which leads to Rodgers tearing him a new asshole.
DeGuara?
Yes, DeGuara. And then Dominic Daphne is like, he's kind of like mini Mercedes Lewis. It's kind of funny to watch. Like he's just a smaller blocking tight end. He's very fun. He actually went to the same school as Robert Tonyan, both Indiana State products. Like there's like 4
Oh, wow.
players who have ever gotten snaps in the NFL from Indiana State, and 2 of them are in the tight ends room for the Green Bay Packers. It's very odd. But Dominic Daphne's kind of been battling with injuries all season. So really, it's like the Lewis and DeGuara show, in my opinion. Tyler Davis, who was picked off the Colts practice squad earlier in the season, gets in for a couple snaps, but he's mostly a special teamer. The 2 guys that you're going to want to look out for are Lewis and DeGuara, unless Daphne for sure can play, and then he's just kind of like a smaller version of Lewis, basically.
All right. If you could pick any player in the NFL to play an offensive line position, but you have no idea which offensive line position it is Elton Jenkins in your top 5 for that like pick?
I think so. I mean, Zach Martin would be up there too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Zach Martin, what's his name? Scherf from Washington is another one. But yeah, Elton's doing a great job. I mean, you look at the PFF stats and stuff, and they'll tell you, he's a top 10 left tackle, and theoretically he's playing out of position. Maybe when Bakhtiari returns, he plays right tackle, but Bakhtiari hasn't practiced the last 3 practices, I believe. This was a player that a lot of people hoped that would return at the very least by the Arizona Cardinals game, and some people had hopes that he would start the season off of the PUP list, which obviously didn't happen. So the recovery for his ACL hasn't been as quick as some hoped, but it's still an ACL injury, and he is still a human. So we'll see how that kind of develops as the season moves along. But the big hole the Packers have on the offensive line is actually Royce Newman, who's their 4th round pick. He's a rookie. He does not deal with slants, stunts, blitzes, moving across his face very well. He does very well, big on big type of situations, one-on-one. But once another guy gets in the mix, you could kind of see his head spin a little bit. I am kind of surprised how well Lucas Patrick has stepped up at center. Obviously, Josh Myers, their 2nd round pick, went down at center early on in the season. John Runyon came off of the bench to play left guard. He did pretty well. Joshua Nijman did some good reps as basically like a practice squad level player.
Wait, Nijman? Really?
Yeah, playing left tackle. Vatek. He's dancing bear, buddy. He's going to get some money as a swing tackle. I'm very happy for him. I'm very happy for him.
No, me too. I liked him. Okay, that's cool.
Billy Turner is probably playing his best ball of his career right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Billy Turner being good at football somehow. How's that happening?
He's developed, man. Aaron Rodgers. He just brings everyone up. You just got to get some chemistry with the guy. Keep the vets in. But yeah, Royce Newman is kind of the marked man, and you could see it against Kansas City. Like Kansas City was like, we're going to make this guy's life hell.
So so you expect the Vikings just run a bunch of games at Newman?
Not a lot of teams have actually done that this season, but it has shown on tape throughout the year. Like before the Kansas City Chiefs game, everyone who's like watched these Packers play has known Newman is kind of the marked man. Just no one's been able to kind of like adequately go at him. Kansas City like committed to it. So I don't know. Zimmer gives out a ton of pressures. I would assume that Zimmer would be, slobbering, chomping at the bit to get after Newman, but I guess we'll find out.
What is Dennis Kelly's role on the team then?
That's a weird situation and a very interesting one. So he was brought in. People thought that maybe he would start at right tackle. Yeah. He got early reps in camp at right tackle because he was kind of that like mid-summer signing in the same way like Devondre Campbell was in terms of like a vet coming in for like cheap.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were surprised that he was floating out there for so long.
Yeah, because he started for Tennessee last year. He's been battling with a back injury. It was notable that like Nijman started over him at left tackle, and above John Runyon, who also had experience at the tackle position. But Dennis Kelly's role is basically like right tackle number 2. And he's been battling with a back injury for most of the season. So he like hasn't even gotten in on offense. He's only gotten a couple special teams plays. He's often inactive because of that injury. Healthy now, but yeah, it hasn't been a great year for Dennis when he could have been in line for some money, you would think.
Yeah, well, you know what Stoner says.
He never had a bad back. No one's ever had a bad back.
No one used to have a bad back. Your phrasing of it makes no sense as a
No one has a bad back. No one, not one person.
No one has a bad back. Eric Stoner, 2014 or something. How did you screw that? Okay, anyway. Are we going to see Alan Lazard at receiver?
Yeah, he's banged up right now. I mean, that's the wide receiver stuff is weird because Devonta, MVS, Lazard, and Malik Taylor, who's like their punt gunner.
Yeah.
He's like an important special teams player for him, have all shown up on the injury list. Oh, I forgot Equanimeous St. Brown, so throw his name in there too. So that's a ton of names at wide receiver. Devonta came back today. But yeah, it's a little concerning when you have, 7 receivers on the roster and 5 surprisingly showed up on the injury report in the first 2
How
days.
is
of
Randall
reporting.
Cobb the healthiest guy?
I don't know. And Randall Cobb was second in snaps at wide receiver for the team last week.
Nuts.
And
put Rodgers in the front office.
A surprise. Well, it was a surprise. Randall Cobb has been wide receiver 4 for the vast majority of the season. The only time he outsnapped his pace last week was when all 3 of those wide receivers were hurt against the Arizona Cardinals. So Cobb kind of jumping them in terms of the rotation last week was a big surprise. Like there's probably like 3 notable things in terms of the snap counts, and that was one of them.
Do you expect that to continue, or do you think that they'll?
I mean, if the guys are banged up, yeah. And the other thing too that has been proposed by Packers fans, and it's more of a theory than like anyone actually stating it.
Packers conspiracies. Let's go.
It's not even Packers conspiracies. It's just Rodgers hasn't had normal practices. So like, dude is coming off of not normal practices. He's had a lot of reps with Randall Cobb. It makes sense that Randall Cobb would be getting more snaps, you know?
Yeah, I guess. So no Amari Rodgers. Amari Rodgers is a bust.
Look, there's a theory floating out there. This is actual Packers conspiracy theory.
Okay.
Look,
okay.
There's the actual Packers conspiracy theory. Someone said, hey, drop a dumbbell on Rodgers' toe and let's put him on IR. And they dropped the dumbbell on the wrong Rodgers.
That's the dumbest thing I've heard.
Look, listen. Amari is going to be back there. He's going to have two punt returns at least in this game. He's very frustrating. Sometimes he'll fair catch it when he has like 20 yards of space. Sometimes he'll catch it when there's a guy in his face. He'll muff punts. He's a very frustrating punt returner to watch.
Yeah, so he's Mike Hughes.
I refuse to know what Mike Hughes looks like as a return man.
Well, okay.
Is that all he is for you guys? He doesn't play defense anymore?
Well, Mike Hughes isn't on the Vikings anymore. He plays for Kansas City. They traded him to Kansas City. He played week 1, got an interception. Everyone was like, wow, the Vikings really screwed that one up. And then he couldn't crack that. He just got fewer and fewer snaps as the season went on, and is now only their punt returner. And he's already, I believe, muffed 2 punts for Kansas City. So he's doing exactly what he did with the Vikings. I believe in his opening week for the Vikings, he got a pick 6. So it's exactly the same. Cool. Anything else we should know about Packers pass catchers?
No, as long as you know, like, they have so many big bodies at wide receiver that they use them in different ways. Like, you're going to see them motion down Alan Lazard, etc., to like tight end or wing positions when you guys get into nickel, and they're just going to try to run it down your throat because they essentially their wide receivers are built like Robert Tonyan. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how.
Well, I remember when Alan Lazard was coming out, I advocated that he actually just come out as a tight end. So that's perfect. He hates that, by the way.
I'm sure AJ Dillon's done the same thing where he lined up at fullback for 1 snap with like him and Aaron Jones in the backfield in a short yardage situation. They gave it to him on a fullback dive. And I was on a show with him where we were talking to him about that. And he was like, let's be very clear. Never call me a fullback. Never, ever call me a fullback. So yeah, those guys
pay halfbacks. That's all.
Exactly. Which is why Elton Jenkins eventually is going to play tackle, and he's going to make a lot of money playing tackle.
Yeah, it's like the Orlando Brown thing, the left tackle, right tackle. All right, before we switch to defense, we had a listener ask, is Matt Lafleur a good coach?
I think he's a really good coach. I think he rides the hot hand. He calls plays based off of what the personnel on the field can do. He adjusts very quickly. He'll give Rodgers just enough leash to like, hey, this is your drive to call shot plays. And then he'll pull the reins back immediately and just go into like his RPO zone, play action boot type of offense if it doesn't work the next drive. So I actually really like Matt LaFleur as a head coach. He also has kind of been the bomb squad. Like that's kind of like how I explain like Mike Tomlin, where like all the other, like the non-football things that he's had to navigate. LaFleur's right there, up there with them, I think. So I think he's a pretty good coach. I'm very happy he's in Green Bay. I think Bill Belichick needs to win like 300 consecutive football games to match Matt LaFleur's win percentage. So I'm very happy with him.
All right. So the defense,
as a Packers owner.
right? Jesus Christ. Okay, so the defense. Big questions to small questions. Big questions: who is playing cornerback? Also, what happened in Week 4 that made the Packers defense suddenly good from Week 4 to Week 10 versus Week 1 to Week 3? And why do the Packers keep on fielding these linebackers from the University of Minnesota? What the hell is up with that? Those are the big questions.
Okay, corner. Eric Stokes is a full-time starter at this point. Kevin King is still kind of like on a pitch count with that shoulder injury, so Russell Douglas outsnapped him 2-1 at outside corner.
Is the shoulder injury the only reason?
Kevin has actually played probably his best 3 or 4 games in his Packers history in the last 3 or 4 games. So I'm with you, man. I've been as critical of Kevin King as anyone. I promise you. You could find my tweets on twitter.com and they were accurate at the time, but Kevin is playing better ball than Kevin has played before. So
what happened to always right sometimes early? This sounds like right once, often late. Like I don't.
This is right both times. Things have changed. What is it? Material changes. What was that like? NBA tweeter who's like, actually, I got this right, but it just didn't happen.
That's right.
There were material changes. Chandon Sullivan is the full-time slot player, by the way. They kind of divorce the slot and outside corner positions in a way that is kind of rarely seen in the NFL, I would say. But very much like Chandon is the slot.
Okay. So Eric Stokes, I feel like his first couple of weeks he was playing well, and then he seems lost now, which is in contraposition to the entire rest of the Packers defense, which seems much more in position. But they seemed lost early.
He's solid.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take him. A lot of his stuff is like makeup speed, honestly. Like,
yeah,
he's got a lot more like Sammy Shields in him than Jair Alexander. I'll say that for sure. There's often times that he'll lose on a 9 route and then just come back into the play and end up with a pass breakup. And you're like, how the hell did he make that play? And it's like, yeah, the dude runs a 4.2. Like, yeah, he can do things that other people can't, and he can recover.
I went to his draft scout page, and I was surprised that it listed him as a 4.31 because I thought he was just a 4.25 guy.
Yeah, he's nuts, and 40 times are always weird for guys who don't line up in 3-point positions. So
fair enough. So Roswell Douglas, Kevin King switching off because of apparently a Kevin King shoulder injury. How's that battery working then? Because you said Kevin King has played well the past 3 or 4 games. When it's Douglas in there, are they all right?
Yeah, Douglas has been doing good. And, he had that big game against Arizona. So to put it into perspective, King got hurt against the Bengals, which was like his first like really good game this season. He got hurt with a shoulder injury immediately because someone tried to hurdle him and they failed to hurdle him and his shoulder took the brunt of that failure.
Shouldn't have gotten in the way. Don't always have to take the charge, Kevin.
So Roswell Douglas came in to replace him as a starter. He ended that Arizona Cardinals game, who, he was in Cardinals camp this summer and picked it off in Cardinals end zone and then like flexed at the crowd while Cardinals fans were just demoralized.
I strongly approve. That's a good move.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great moment in Packers history. I'm happy you as an owner can appreciate it. But yeah, no, the corners are doing good. And honestly, like this is the best the secondary I think has played since probably that Super Bowl year, just because like they had issues at safety, and then eventually those issues at safety were solved, and then they had issues at corner. The other guy that's going to play a lot, so obviously the starters are Savage and Amos at safety. Henry Black gets in often as their like dime backer,
or
not dime backer, but Amos drops
in
down
there
the back.
in dime.
Yes, he's in there in dime. They play 3 safety dime. They don't bring in an extra slot back who would be Shamar John Charles if Chandon Sullivan goes down, but that's kind of the only time that they use him. Mm-hmm. Henry Black will get into the game in their 3 safety dime looks, and Amos will probably play linebacker in those spots.
So, okay, my impression of Darnell Savage is whenever I watch him, he is lights out good, like potentially top 5 safety good. And then when I don't watch him, it sounds like he's quiet as hell. So I've only apparently watched his great games. What is the deal
thing
with
the safeties? The thing with the safety is such a hard position to evaluate. Like with stats or flash plays, because if you're doing a good job, they're just not going to your area of the field at all.
Yeah, it's the Earl
You know what I
Thomas
mean?
issue. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Savage has good ball skills. He has movement skills like a man coverage cornerback, even at the NFL level. You know, he's one of those guys who has like that Tyrann Mathieu upside, but he doesn't play in the slot or anything. So like, it's just hard for him to kind of flash that, especially when you're playing quarters. It's not like they're a big middle of the field safety type of team that he can show that range like an Earl Thomas was able to kind of like highlight on an every play basis, you know? So they got good safeties. They got good safeties.
So Adrian Amos, because I feel like maybe it's just because I've seen it in like Peter Bukowski's mentions or whatever, but I feel like Packers fans are not necessarily overjoyed with Adrian Amos.
I don't know if that's the case. I mean, he's a boomstick. Like he's going to come down and hit people. He does things like he's able to play linebacker in ways that like a lot of safeties aren't able to play consistently. Yeah. I mean, Mike Pettin gave him all those damn reps to play dime linebacker, and now it's showing up. He definitely is more of like their drop down guy. Like Savage, I know on paper Savage is like listed as like a strong safety. He's kind of like their middle of the field player when they have that choice. So Amos is kind of like the low hole strong safety type of guy, and he's more of like the matchup guy on tight ends for the most part. So
at linebackers, why is Oren Burks still on the roster? Sounds like he doesn't know what he's looking at.
So he's not that bad anymore. I think he's actually gotten better over the past year. The thing with him is they really try to protect him. At the end of the day, he's not a very big guy. What you will see, especially with Barry, is Oren Burks coming off of the edge. Like they'll turn him out as an edge rusher. They do a lot of
better use of him. That makes sense.
And it's very weird that he's playing on the edge as a former college safety. I mean, but he is fast, and that's one of the big benefits of him. One thing that you'll see with Green Bay, especially I think against Minnesota, you got to remember this Packers defense has just been coming off of just spread offense from that Washington game on, right? They got Washington, they got Arizona, they got Kansas City, and then Seattle couldn't go under center because of Russ's finger, right? So they've basically seen 4 spread offenses in a row. Ideally, when this team is playing against heavy personnel, they do play a lot of like actual base defense, and they match personnel pretty well in terms of like your amount of wide receivers equals my amount of corners on the field, which was very different from Pettin, who would just play like, hey, it's 1st and 10, it's PN10. It doesn't matter the situation. We're running dime, right? They led the league in dime last year. They're not doing that this year, at least at the same clip. They played a ton of dime against Seattle, but I think that was more of a game plan thing. So what you'll see is they go into like this penny look in nickel, which is basically 3 defensive tackles and only 1 inside linebacker. So think of like a bear front, if you can imagine that, but only 1 inside backer, and you have a slot back on the field. They'll do that, and they'll play Oren Burks off of the edge. So that's something to watch.
That's weird as hell.
It's very odd. They do a lot of unique things quietly in Green Bay, but it's not like they don't get a ton of TFLs or anything in the run game.
How long has Devonta Campbell been on the roster? I feel like he was like a pretty late acquisition.
I think he was brought in July.
Okay.
June. He was signed in June.
Okay. So I remember when he was with the Falcons, I called him good Paul Warlow, and Chuck got mad at me. Is he that?
He's better than that. He's legitimately playing at like a Pro Bowl level. Like if you
Pro Bowl level,
buddy, I might say Depoy. Like you can convince me. Like
come on,
dude.
Man.
They play this penny look, and they make him play sideline to sideline, and he just eats defenses up, or he eats offenses up. Like they're putting everything on his plate, and he's making these plays. The one way you can hurt him a little bit is if you have a really athletic tight end and you run benders over the field. Sometimes he doesn't robot the crosser, and you can kind of get him to turn guys loose. Like we saw that against Kansas City with Travis Kelce. The Seattle Seahawks tight end Gerald Everett led the team in receiving yards last week. Like you can kind of eat him up a little bit with tight ends, but in terms of the run game, like dude, he is out there, and he is putting up production.
Watch out for speed threat Tyler Conklin then.
Oh no, is he starting at tight end this week?
Well, oh yeah, he's starting at tight end every week. Irv Smith's like dead.
Rest in power. Goodness. Christopher Herndon. You guys traded for Christopher Herndon. You're not playing him?
Yeah, here's the thing. So the day they traded for Christopher Herndon, they also signed Ben Ellefson off of waivers. Same day. So they got 2 tight ends on the same day. One they got off of waivers, one is a 4th round pick. I believe 2 weeks ago was the first week that Herndon outsnapped Ellefson. Ellefson is on IR.
Uh-oh.
So Herndon has been I guess the thing about him is that he has been he's learning the playbook, I guess is the way to put it.
It's November.
I don't know why Ellefson. Well, I mean they showed up, like a week before the season. I don't know why Ellefson got to play in the first game and Herndon didn't. Maybe where was Ellefson? The Jets? No, that was Herndon. Where was Ellefson? Maybe the Jacksonville playbook is very similar to the Vikings playbook. Certainly, I would not impugn anyone's ability to pick up information or use any of the slander coming out of the organization as evidence that maybe some of that slander was correct. But it seems like Herndon no longer has his fastball. And so if he's not a crazy athlete, he has a little bit less to offer. But he did catch the first reception of last week's game. Used his scripted drive, very first target, Christopher Herndon. So
you got to get the ball in your playmaker's hands, man.
Yeah. Certainly, you got to give it your most explosive athlete.
My favorite Christopher Herndon fact is the Jets had so few players when they made their uniform change that Christopher Herndon was one of the uniform rollout. Like,
well, they don't have anybody on that calendar anymore.
No,
right?
I think he was the last player. Yeah. Herndon was the last player on that calendar because it was like him, Jamal Adams, Robbie Anderson, Sam Darnold. It was bleak, man. It was bleak.
That's amazing. Oh my god. The deep Jets lore. All right. So the Packers are like crazy good against the pass. They seem to be whatever against the run. That seems to be what a lot of teams are doing, but also specifically relative to the rest of the league, the Packers are a little bit below average against the run. Right? So
I buy it.
Why
they don't get TFLs. They literally went through like a month without any TFLs.
Why?
They just don't get the way that they play defense is so they do a lot of bear front stuff and penny stuff, which is like you're putting 3 defensive tackles on the field and you're putting them in interior alignment. So you're dissuading inside run, forcing balls outside, and then just rallying to the ball. So like they're basically conceding like, yeah, you can at least get like 3 rushing yards per attempt if you like actually want it and want to execute it. And we're just going to rally to it. And we're going to try to stop your quarterback. Like that's
is this a waste of Kenny Clark's talents?
No, because they're able to. So one, they've gotten him to play 3 technique a little bit more than the first couple weeks of the season, which was kind of, I think, one of their bigger issues. They play a lot more nickel stuff now, which gets him and Dean Lowry onto the field, and they're both plus pass rushers. So I think that's a way to use him. They do let Kenny Clark kind of chase guys onto the edge on like blitzes and stunts. Like they had Kenny Clark at time, like Preston Smith would stab inside. Kenny Clark, loops around outside, and then he has to play contain on Russell Wilson, and he was able to do it. So I think they're leaning into his strengths. It might not necessarily show up in production, but it does show up on tape.
Yeah, I know. I have him on an IDP roster. I'm pissed.
Yeah, I mean it's fine. It's fine.
He's fine.
He's a nose tackle, dude. You're not supposed to get production from a nose tackle.
Yeah, but I mean, you did get production from a nose tackle last year. That's all I'm saying.
Well, we also got trap ran on us like a bad high school team. So got the crap beaten out of us by a team that ran power.
Rashawn Gary, good? Question mark.
He is looking good. He has one move. It is a bull rush. You can beat him in terms of like him setting the edge on contain. He's a little undisciplined in that way. The fact that he might be braced up with that elbow injury could probably change things. I guess that's something to kind of see, but he's limited in practice. We thought that he was going to be out a whole lot longer after seeing that replay on Sunday. So I'm happy to have Rashawn Gary. Preston Smith is doing a great job as like an edge setter. He's more of like the edge setting run stopper who can like also drop into coverage more than Rashawn Gary, who's almost like designated pass rusher. The thing that hurts them is Merciless is on IR. Darius Smith is on IR. Who else is it? Chauncey Rivers is on IR. Randy Ramsey, who is getting outside and inside linebacker reps, is on IR. So they're down to Jonathan Garvin, and then they just brought up Tipa Galea from the practice squad. Tipa is maybe 230 pounds, and he is definitely designated pass rusher. So they're just in terms of bodies, very light at outside linebacker because that's where they've been hurt the most in terms of just cluster injuries, I guess.
So this is a secondary driven defense.
The front two, a lot of it's by alignment too, but yeah, the secondary is playing out of their minds. I told you, this is the best secondary I've seen since the Super Bowl season. So,
all right. So obviously we have to talk about special teams. What happened to J.K. Scott? Why isn't he there? What's going on?
He's not very good. He was overrated. The analytics liked him too much. Bajorquez has a boot.
Loved him.
Yeah, Bajorquez has a boot. He's a lot better.
So
he's not so good as a holder. They had a problem.
I was about to say the Bills let him go because he was an awful holder.
Yeah, so Bajorquez, there was operation issues. Basically, Steve Wardle. So this is what happened, right? The Packers had protection issues in the kicking game. They semi-fixed the protection issues, then made a switch at long snapper. Yeah. I describe it as semi-fixed. I'm not sold that the protection issues are fixed. They made a switch at long snapper. They brought up Stephen Wardle, who had been protected on the practice squad. Wardle was in Rams camp with Bajorquez, and the whole thought was, we're going to make our kicking operation better. And then it did not get better. And then last week, it actually looked fine, but then the wind took a kick from Mason Crosby and made it a missed attempt. So,
do you see the interview Jay Feely did with Cover One on?
I did not.
On Bajorquez holding. Yeah, that makes sense because why would you have seen that? But yeah, I guess Bajorquez is an awful holder, and the bad punter that the Bills have is an amazing holder.
Bajorquez has a boot though. He does a lot of weird stuff. Like he might have one of the biggest legs in the league. He's fun to watch.
Yeah,
I
sure.
wouldn't be opposed to him.
His punting stats are nuts.
He might be like a legit Pro Bowl punter. The holding stuff definitely is weird, and sometimes you can't tell because like the long snapper the operation is just bad, dude. The operation's bad. So like when he puts it down and he's like, I had it so Mason kicked the laces because if I spun the ball at all, he wouldn't have had time because
he would have changed the timing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I believe you. I believe you. Let's just get it fixed.
But Mason Crosby, like his numbers this year,
they're bad, but they're not his fault. Like,
I
think everyone feels bad for Mason because they're like, damn, they keep posing you.
Yeah. Because what was it, 2012? His numbers were awful, and I was like, why haven't the Packers cut him yet? Obviously, he bounced back. But that it sounded like was a Mason Crosby issue way back then. This time, like, given that the Bills specifically cut a very good punter for holding, it would make sense that the practice squad promoted long snapper and the punter cut for holding are probably more responsible than like a near Pro Bowl kicker missing. Like he was 100% of field goals last year. So like it feels like that's got to be clearly way more the issue.
Yeah, like you can look at the Mason kicks and whether it's protection, whether it's the operation, or whether it's weather,
right,
that's responsible for a lot of his misses. So he's definitely a lot less shaky, I would say, than his stats.
I need a sports psychology take. If it's the holder and the weather that's the fault, does it still hurt a kicker's psyche? Can they get the yips from that?
Dude, he's such a vet. He was drafted in 2007. I don't think he's getting shaken off of a couple misses. Like, he knows he belongs.
I don't know. Dan Bailey seemed like he got the yips. I don't know.
Well,
Dan Bailey was like the third best kicker of all time.
I guess that's fair. I don't know. I still believe in Mason. It seems like the team still believes in Mason. So, whatever. I guess yet to be seen, but I'm definitely willing to blame a whole lot more people for the missed field goals than Mason.
Oh no, I do think it's I do think it's the operation. I'm just saying kickers have fragile psyches, famously.
Yeah, but like Mason was like a 3rd round pick or something. No, he was
like a 6th round. What are you talking about?
Oh well, never mind.
I would know if he was a 3rd round pick.
My bad. Never mind. I got him mixed up. I remembered the punter that we
Brian
drafted
Anger
from Ohio State.
Okay. Way back. Okay.
Way back. I don't know how I did that. That's
nuts.
Like CTE setting in.
Are the Packers like? Is the rest of the special teams like good coverage, good kickoff? Like what's the deal there? Because it sounds like the Vikings can actually return kicks now for the first time since Cordero. Will they be able to? Who's handling kickoffs? Is it Bajorquez?
I think it's Mason still.
Oh, interesting. He still has that leg?
Yeah. I think it's still Mason. But Yeah, they're a little iffy in coverage every once in a while, but like when Yadam's in there, and he just came back, he came off of the COVID reserve at the same time as Rodgers, much less talked about, I think, than Rodgers is a situation. But when he's out there as a punt gunner and stuff, he's done a really good job. Him and Malik Taylor, who's on the injury report right now for I believe an abdomen injury, are kind of like their aces in terms of gunning down punts, and they also contribute on a kickoff. So those are kind of like the key guys there. They do a pretty good job. Like they have a lot of speed. They have a lot of guys who like, frankly, just play special teams. Like at inside linebacker, Ty Summers, Oren Burks, Isaiah McDuffie. All of those guys are just like crazy athletes who are basically on the roster for the most part.
Sounds like maybe it's because I remember like what was that running back from Rice, Sam McDuffie, but Isaiah McDuffie, that name just sounds like super fast linebacker that only plays special teams. That's what the name screams.
And he's undersized. Yeah, you nailed
Perfect.
It. Yep.
Are they good at returning stuff? Punt returns, kick returns?
Punt returns, no, man. Amari's out there. Kick returns,
That's right.
It's kind of hard to know because Malik Taylor's out there now because Kylan Hill was the returner for a long time, and Kylan Hill just recently got hurt. So I literally don't know what to make of the return team when Malik is out there. The fact that Malik is hurt kind of puts a question mark on everything. I think Patrick Taylor would be a guy who would possibly get some return snaps given the opportunity just based off of kind of his skill set and where he is on the depth chart. But punt returns, I'm very shaky, bud. I'm very shaky.
Have we left any takes on the table? I want to get as much meat off this bone as possible. What takes do you have left?
Dean Lowry, low key, the past month, he's been playing at a Pro Bowl level interior in terms of like pass rushing alone. Daryl Slayton was in a weird spot because the situation that they're in right now, outside linebacker, is kind of what they dealt with against the Chiefs on the interior. Daryl Slayton by far outpaced the rest of his games in terms of snaps against the Chiefs. Kind of had a breakout game. He's a 5th round pick rookie. Very much is like high upside nose tackle who can get after the quarterback, but has conditioning issues.
Yeah, he tested pretty poorly too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
my database is like TJ, I think.
Yeah, TJ Slayton. Yeah, they change what they want to call him like every day. But
cool.
He had a breakout game, I would say, against the Chiefs. He finally moved up on the depth chart above Tyler Lancaster. So I think this interior defensive line, which at different points in the season has kind of been a liability for them, is now getting a lot better. And it's interesting that it's coming from Clark, Lowry, and Slayton, and not a guy like Kingsley Keke, who currently is dealing with an issue. He's dealing with a concussion that he had against the Arizona Cardinals, and he had one last season. And he had one last season that held him out a couple of games.
That's serious.
It's a bummer, and he was a guy who I think, every Packers fan, like if you were like, hey, who do you want to break out this year? I think everyone would have said like Kingsley Keke, just because of how many snaps that kind of position entails. And the fact that Lowry basically had to leave money on the table to stay as a Green Bay Packer. They had to restructure his deal just to keep him. So the fact that Lowry, Clark, and Slayton now are kind of coming along all at the same time is nice to see. So I think this interior is a little bit better than we've seen recently. But again, I think the big thing for the Packers defense is transitioning back to kind of what their defense was early on in the season, like against the Chicago Bears and stuff, where you're seeing more tight ends and stuff, because they've been playing against so many spread offenses that's kind of the mode that they've been in. And the Vikings just play a different kind of offensive ball,
Yeah. When does Darius Smith's guaranteed money run out?
So it would be this year, but they converted his salary into a bonus this season, so he's still going to be on the dead cap next season. Basically, one of the big reasons I think this hasn't been said explicitly that Za'Darius basically tried to play week 1 without practicing the entire summer and then got put on IR for that back injury is they converted his salary into a bonus, which then put him into a situation where 2022 or 2021 is now a prove-it season for a contract in 2022. Yeah. So he tried to force playing healthy, wasn't healthy enough to play even as like a third down only guy, and then had to have back surgery in season instead of in the summer because of how they had to use the salary cap mechanics. So kind of a bummer. He wasn't voted a team captain either. He seemed to take that to heart. He said he was going to commission a chain of the captain patch being made. I don't know if he's actually done that. He has returned to Green Bay, as has Jair Alexander. So there's hopes that they will return at some point this season. But
wait, a guy with back surgery might be DFR?
Look, hey man, I guess so. He wants his money, man, and I don't blame him because
I
got
understand
him on a pretty good deal, and he legitimately played at like a defensive player of the year level, in his tenure. At Green Bay,
that's a DPOY take that actually makes sense. He was phenomenal. I think he led the league in pressures, right? So like crazy good.
Yeah, and he was perfect for Penn's system too because they would just like line him up over a center, and they're like,
is he going to be useful to have at his contract number next year?
No, I think the way that because they've moved around, they've played so many games with the salary cap. Like, I think they're going to have to let Darius walk, honestly, which is why he'd probably try to play this year to make money for next year. But yeah, that's a tough one for him.
All right,
at least he got one big contract out of it.
Yeah, well, I'm happy for him because he deserves to get paid. Just kind of sucks that going through injury. All right, so final bits before we get to the score prediction. Would you rather have a very Christian quarterback deny the COVID vaccine for Bible-related reasons, or would you rather have? Has Rodgers said he's an atheist? He gives off very atheist vibes.
I don't think so. He said he's seen a UFO. I don't know how all that stuff fits in.
Okay, well let's assume he's agnostic. He gives very atheist vibes. Or would you rather have an agnostic quarterback refuse the COVID vaccine for critical thinking related reasons? Which one of those quarterbacks would you rather have? And we're taking the lying to the media out of it.
I think Kirk's logic makes more sense to me.
It's more like internally consistent.
Yeah, just because like the Rodgers thing, like he was like talking about like, hey, go look at India and ivermectin, like do some research on yourself. And like I literally looked it up. India's largest paper was like, here's why India doesn't use ivermectin anymore. And
India stopped using ivermectin after a month. Yeah,
they were like, someone just copy pasted a bunch of data into a spreadsheet, and then people took it as a
copy and pasted
journal.
data with typos in it. Like it's too problem. Yeah.
So like that was, I mean, he's like, do your research, and you could do the research and quickly realize like, wow, this is bullcrap. So I don't know. I mean, neither one of them really makes sense to me, but that's from my perspective. So
okay,
I don't know what that's
who is benefiting the most from 5G in their bloodstream on the Packers?
Kurt Benkert. He's on Twitter a lot.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I can't.
He might be like the 5G power generator. Like he might be the power source.
Okay, so Kurt Benkert is like crazy cool.
Yeah, good hang gamer.
Yeah, absolutely right. Ethan loves him. Our mutual friend Ethan.
Shouts to Twitch.
Shouts to Twitch. Is it possible that Kurt Benkert overtakes Jordan Love? Because that's just a cooler universe.
No, there's no way, dude. There's no way.
Yeah, I saw his game against Navy. That was bad.
Dude, you can't draft that quarterback with Aaron Rodgers, make this whole show about it for this whole offseason, and then
I didn't say next year. I mean ever.
He's on the practice squad right now, dude. Like,
so was Kurt Warner. They're both named Kurt. They were both on a Packers practice squad. Are you gonna watch the
Kurt Warner movie?
I feel like I have to, right? Who's playing Kurt Warner? It's not Dennis Quaid. Who is it?
No.
Some also like a guy who looks old as the rookie quarterback.
Zachary Taylor.
Kurt Warner. American Underdog. Oh, is this funded by Kurt Warner's like production studio? Like it's like a Christian production studio?
Big Kurt Warner. Yeah, Big Kurt Warner has invaded.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. American Underdog 2021 IMDb.
Zachary Levi, not Zachary Taylor.
Levi. Good Lord. Yeah. Okay. So they're. Oh my God. Okay. So Dennis Quaid is in the movie, but he's Dick Vermeil. Adam Baldwin of Gamergate fame is in the movie.
I don't know what that means, and
don't worry. Do not worry about it. Someone named O.J. Simpson is in the movie. He's playing a running back.
What?
That's true. His name is O.J. Keith Simpson, and he's playing Marshall Faulk.
Uh-oh. That's not great.
It's not good vibes. It's not good vibes. I got an production.
I'll probably watch it. I watched that awful
Draft Day
movie. which is
It
like
was
easily the worst sports movie.
okay. I'm so
and there's a
because
lot of bad sports movies, frankly, but that's
yeah.
the
Okay, so
worst
that's
one.
the thing is like of sports movies, an already bereft genre, an already awful genre. Uh, it is down. Oh my god, it's getting released on Christmas. It is down there as one of the worst sports movies. And I put this take out on Twitter, and so many people respond with, "I liked it. You just don't
Dude,
like it
no,
because
and
you know
it doesn't even make sense either. Like it's a bad movie. The like narrative arc doesn't make sense. Like
okay,
none
yeah,
of
okay.
it's
So that's what I mean.
believable,
Yeah.
none of
So
it
like if you
translates.
because so many people respond, we're just going to make this part of the pod about this. So if you, so the most common response I get is you just know too much about how the draft works, and that's interfering with your understanding of the movie. And it's like if you just accept
But
the
there's like
weird,
logical flaws, like very logical flaws. And it's also a bad movie in general. Like in terms of
Yes.
entertainment value, it's not good.
the narrative arc makes no sense. There's no like the redemption, like the pacing is awful. You don't get
What's the IMDb on draft day? We're gonna find
it's
out.
that's a good question. Okay, I'm reading about the production company. Yeah, so it is. So the production company for American Underdog, a Kurt Warner story, is a Christian films production company. But it is. I thought for some reason I thought it was Kurt Warner's production company. I thought he like founded one, but no, this is a just a generally Christian production company. So there's one called I Still Believe about Christian music artist Jeremy Camp. There's one called Apostles Resurrection of Christ. There's one called Jesus Revolution. There's one called The Drummer Boy. And in cooperation with Christian music group for King and Country. That feels like a red flag to me.
So draft day, box office, gross in the United States, less than 29 million. This is a movie that had Kevin Costner, Jennifer Gardner, Dennis Leary, and Diddy. So
was this Jennifer Garner's last like AAA movie or whatever you would call it, big movie?
It was that, and then ever since then, it's just been Capital One commercials.
It's just been Capital One. Oh my gosh, she was on such an arc after Alias. Holy crap! Yeah. Draft Day killed. That's sad.
Tough scene.
That's sad.
Draft Day, the concussion movie killed Will Smith's career.
His career's not. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's over. What's the last Will Smith movie you've seen?
Well, I mean, I don't go to movies.
Interesting. Interesting. Here, let me talk to you about the Minnesota Vikings because we're going to cross post this onto APC too.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's you're now biting into your time because you set yourself a hard limit. Okay,
I did. I set myself an hour and a half. I said that's all we're going to do. What do you expect out of this offense? Give me a rundown. Is this still just a like zone boot offense?
No, I mean that's what it wasn't. It wasn't that for the first like 6 weeks of the season. They ran very little play action. They didn't do explosives. Obviously, they did zone at a higher rate than almost anyone else in the league, but they didn't mix in their non-zone stuff outside of goal line for once, so that's new. So I'm looking up Will Smith movies, and I'm going to say that your takes are still bad. That's all I'm going to say.
No, he's over. He's done. Jada Smith just goes on Twitter and she's like, "Yeah, this is when I thought about leaving Will Smith. It's been a bad run for the boy." All right, back to the. I want to talk about this offensive line. Christian Darius, is he still soft?
First 6. Okay, whatever. First 6 weeks of the season, it was a quick strike offense. Get the ball out quickly. Kirk Cousins had the fastest time to throw that he's ever had. I think the third fastest in the NFL at the time. And they weren't getting very many explosives. His yards per attempt was down, but he also didn't have turnovers, including fumbles because he wasn't getting sacked. And they've gradually been working in a little bit more play action. The problem is their only play action is boot, right? Like that's the only play action that they really do. And the Packers and the 49ers in 2019 showed teams how to beat that kind of boot, which was to let them run the ball and just send the end man in line of scrimmage after the naked. Which is like a fairly simple.
The other thing about boots that I think people don't understand is
you only get half the
harder.
Field.
Yes. Well, one half of the field. It's also a lot harder to boot to the left than boot to the right.
Yeah.
So teams have figured out like Rashawn Gary lines up as the like left pass rusher if you're on Green Bay's defense, right? Looking at the offense.
So he's on
their
the right
left pass rushers for Rashawn, and they'll just tell him like, "Dude, you're going after the quarterback on stretch away from you," and it ends up working a whole lot. Like this offense has kind of been figured out a little bit in terms of the answers being spread around the NFL. Back to Christian Darrisaw, you want to answer the question? He's still soft?
Okay, so first of all, I watched Christian Darrisaw film after the Vikings drafted him, and I like briefly became a Republican for like about a couple of days watching him play. I thought he was so soft. I was like, the kids these days aren't tough enough.
There were scouts that I knew who were like, dude, I would not take that guy. But some
Yeah,
of
I mean,
them
it-
thought
well, it
he
showed
was a
up-
first-round pick, like top 20 guy, should have been drafted before Minnesota. There were a lot of split opinions on that guy.
It showed up in McGinn's pieces too, right? They were just like Charmin, paper soft. I mean, I don't think they used the word Charmin, but like, you know, the scouts' word was baby soft, right? And it turns out that my understanding is, I don't know this for a fact, my understanding is that most of that shows up in the Miami game, right? Which is the game that everyone wants to watch because he's up against like 3 draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out the Miami game, he was super hurt, and the coaches asked him to let up. That's my understanding. This isn't reporting. It's my understanding.
Okay.
If you
Is your
watch
O-line good then?
is the O-line good? It's a lot better, but the
Okay.
problem area is just a new player now. Darrisaw is actually pretty good at finishing right now. He'll finish people. It's you did see it sometimes, especially on his 2019 tape, but it's night and day from some of those games that we saw in 2020. The problem is Oli Udoh, who had a great
Oh, no.
week 2 and week 3. Great.
I remember
week 2 and
him.
week 3.
So he was the small schooler, right?
Yeah, Elon. Yeah,
So he was the small schooler who wasn't even like all conference.
that's correct. Yeah.
I-
Well, because
he-
they kept him at right tackle, right? Like
Yeah.
a Division 2, right? Elon's Division 2. A
think
Division
it's
2
FCS.
player that's
I
not.
think it's FCS.
Oh, FCS. Okay.
I was with XFL at the time, and I got asked about him, and I broke him down a little bit, and I was like, "Wait, why am I watching this guy?" And I was like, "He's not even all conference. Like, what are we talking about, guys?" And I don't know. I
Yeah, he
get
was-
it. At certain situations, like it's just like a height weight thing at offensive line, but
Well,
I
and
was
he
never a
ran
big fan.
extremely well for his weight. Is the
yeah,
other thing.
all right, fine, but
But yeah, I mean, when an FCS school does not put a draftable prospect at left tackle and keeps him at right tackle, it's a red flag too. And then he doesn't even make.
well,
all
who's the guy
conference.
from Alabama State who played at
Titus
he-
Howard?
Yeah, he got drafted by the Texans in the
First
first round.
round?
It was
Yeah.
like a panic because
Well,
what
that's
was
the
it?
thing,
The,
is
the
I didn't
Eagles
think-
took what's his name, the dude from Wazoo, and then they were like,
Yeah.
"Well, dang,
Hunter
we
Dillard.
need a right tackle, so we'll get the guy from Alabama State." And he could not play. I saw him down at the Senior Bowl. He
Well,
could not
they were
play.
in
It
the
was
same
pretty
Senior
obvious.
Bowl, right? And I thought that Udoh and Howard were very similar as prospects. And the fact that one went in the 6th round and one went in the 1st round was like
O-line
shocking.
evals in the draft are so bad, and it's why the Packers keep getting these starters in like the 4th round.
It's disgusting. Vikings drafted Bradbury in the same draft as McCoy and Jenkins. That's the other part of it. Jenkins, who is a top 5 pick at pick a random offensive line position, you don't know which one he's going to play. But no, Udoh is awful right now. He draws a lot of holding penalties when he doesn't. He's playing a lot like you described. The other guard, the rookie guard that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Head on a swivel, but for all the wrong reasons, right? Like doesn't know where he's looking, keeps on panicking. A lot of holding penalties as a result of panic. Surpassed Connor Williams before Connor Williams then again surpassed him later that day for most penalties in the NFL, with the ref crew that called the least amount of penalties up until that point.
The NFL
Yeah.
doesn't like you keeping track of those stats, by the way. The NFL doesn't like it at all.
I mean, of course, but they're on PFR now. Like those stats are out there.
Yeah, but those are on. Yeah, they're on PFR. They don't like that PFF tracks it. They don't like that SIS tracks it. It's very. The NFL is getting real shady
Every
about
NFL
how
team
they
tracks it.
look. Listen, man, we're gonna have a referee scandal of them fixing games at some point. In like special, I'm convinced special teams is just a way for referees to fix games at this point.
How? I mean, special teams matters the least amount that it's ever mattered.
It's
in the
just
NFL.
massive field position swings, buddy. You get rid of explosives, all that. You call whatever you want on special teams. Look,
So
it's
there's
the
another
perfect,
block
it's
in
the
back.
perfect crime. All right, so I feel like I have a good handle on the wide receivers in Minnesota, and we already talked about the tight end situation. Running back. So outside of Dalvin, does Madison give you anything off of the bench? Because I know Wang Wu is kind of like a special teams guy.
Yeah.
I've seen split things about Madison. On
Madison is a
Twitter.com.
success rate guy. He is not an explosives guy. And I don't tend to view success rate guys as all that valuable, but he is a plus success rate guy. Like he's going to get more than the average running back is going to get in terms of successes, but he is not great at generating explosives. He is a surprisingly good pass catcher. If he knew how to pass protect, he'd be a really good pass protector, but he gets his assignments wrong a lot. So I don't think you can swap him. I think Dalvin Cook gets you explosives, but when Dalvin is injured, and he's been injured a couple of games this year, I don't think he'll be. I think he's fully healed now, so I don't think that's an issue. But there were a couple of games where he was injured. I think that injured Dalvin is only slightly better than Alexander Madison, but Madison is a little bit too patient in making his reads, and so he doesn't just take the step and go. And he's already not an explosive guy, so he can sustain and kind of make people miss in a phone booth, and he can power through tackles, but he's not an explosives guy, even though he runs all the same runs as Dalvin.
Your defensive line, how bad is it? Because you have a very 2015 names on the defensive line. Michael Pierce, Sheldon Richardson, Dalvin Tomlinson.
Oh, Michael Pierce isn't playing. He's on IR now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. The thing is, when Michael Pierce was healthy, he was actually a pass rusher for the first time in his life. Like, he was good. Like, he's a really good run stuffer, but he also added pass rush, which was nuts to me.
That's so weird because Brandon Williams was more of the pass rusher in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it was so weird. Like, that's the reason I didn't like it when they signed Dalvin Tomlinson, because it's like Dalvin Tomlinson is the 3 technique version of Michael Pierce. Just can't rush the passer. Wasn't the pass rusher on his team. But so Michael Pierce isn't playing. So it's Armin Watts, who's a pretty bad run defender, but a pretty plus pass rusher for a nose tackle. Dalvin
Was that
Tomlinson,
the Arkansas kid?
Yeah.
I remember he could get after it a little bit.
He was a 3 tech at Arkansas. Yeah.
Yeah, he was kind of fun.
Yeah, I like him. His stance is weird as hell, though. Dalvin Tomlinson is like a pretty good run defender, pretty good. He doesn't produce, but he redirects people, which is weird from the 3 technique position, but that's what he is. Not a great pass rusher. Pretty good as a penetrator on a stunt, right? Like you can loop around him, so he's pretty good at that, but he's not good at actually, pressuring. Everson is good again. Like, it's wild. Like, he's having one of his top 3 seasons right now.
I do like that they just keep signing and releasing the guy who said that your quarterback can't play. Like, that's a fun narrative.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. And so we asked him hey, have you apologized to Kirk yet? And he's like, no, I'm going to do that today. I'll do that today. I haven't talked to him yet.
Thank you for bringing that up. I've been meaning to do it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so we asked Kirk the next day, hey, has Everson talked to you yet? And he's like, we have conversations every now and then. He's like, oh, so he hasn't apologized to you yet. It's not really about that. Okay, no. All right.
Kirk is going to be such a good politician afterwards.
He will be a politician. I don't know if he's
he 100% will be.
No, he will be. I don't think he'll be
good at playing politics. He will be good at playing politics.
Yeah, there you go. He'll be good at giving political answers for sure.
Yes.
I don't think that he has the kind of charisma that makes playing politics useful as a politician. But hey, considering the politics of Holland, Michigan, and considering Kirk Cousins' current stances, it's on the table, right?
I don't know what Holland, Michigan means.
That's where Betsy DeVos is from.
Oh, okay. Chasserot, my son, my rookie linebacker, who's actually a quarterback. Has he gotten into the game yet?
You mean besides special teams? Only when both Eric Hendricks and Anthony Barr have been hurt, and they didn't know if they wanted it to be Blake Lynch or Nick Vigil or Chasserot. It took a lot. And
Chaz is weird because you could see him play at UNC, and he clearly has all of the traits that you would want from a linebacker. Yeah. And there were times where he would light people up, but it was always smaller backs or receivers.
Actually, if you watch his game,
he hesitates into contact, which is
if you watch his game against Christian Darrisaw, it is a crazy back and forth. It's only splash plays in terms of blocks, right? There's one where Darrisaw blocks him out of the all 22 screen, 20 yards downfield, right? And on the next play, Surratt shoots the gap, gets it, chops him out, and gets into the backfield. It's nuts.
Yeah, he mind you, for the Packers fans listening to this who don't know who the hell Chasserod is, he was picked in the top 100 linebacker at UNC. He actually began his college career as the starting quarterback for the Tar Heels. So a very interesting background. His brother, what's his name? Sage? Yeah, Sage Surratt. Put up a bunch of numbers at Wake Forest as a wide receiver. He was Mr. Basketball at in the state of North Carolina in high school. Just a very weird background for brothers,
he's played linebacker for 2 years, and it shows, by the way.
Yeah, he definitely was a guy where it's like, dude, he's got all the traits, but the big minus is toughness, and like that's a pretty important thing at linebackers, especially in the NFL.
Well, I think the Vikings drafted him knowing that they were going to lose Anthony Barr, and they were like,
let's turn that face mask green.
You can teach a kid to rush the passer, I think is what they were thinking.
Yeah. DB wise, you guys obviously are getting back Harrison Smith. What are your corners like?
Patrick Peterson's probably coming back. It looks like he's coming back, and thank God, because he's the only corner that can play.
Love to hear that. Wait, Breland can't play for you guys?
When he's healthy, he's still bad.
Oh. He was all right in Green Bay.
I liked Breland coming in. His highs were very high. His lows.
I see Mackenzie Alexander, and I'm like, lunch.
Nah, Mackenzie's fine. He's like an average.
How's Dantzler playing?
Bad. Okay, so his numbers actually, I think his PFF numbers look pretty good, but he's like benefited from like 4 receiver drops on his targets, and it gives him confidence. And corners need confidence, so I'll give him that. Right. But okay. So here's the problem. The reason that the Vikings can't be a playoff team, even if they win enough games to go to the playoffs, is that if they hit a team with speed, they have 0 corners that can handle speed. Dantzler is not running the 4.38 that he ran at his fake pro day. He put on weight because the Vikings were concerned about him constantly getting hurt, which, by the way, he got hurt again. And he can't put on weight and run. We saw that at the combine. And so he's just slow when he adds weight. Breland is like a 4.5 kind of guy right now. And so he can't hang. And Patrick Peterson is 31 or whatever. Right.
Right.
So like, honestly, their fastest corner might be Mackenzie Alexander, which is like, Christ, man.
Woo! Throw screens, Lafleur.
They're pretty good at open field tackles.
Okay. I heard that from Seahawks fans too. I'm fine with that. Love it. Love it. Love what I'm hearing. Nwangwu, he had that like weird, like, I'm gonna touch the ball in every way on special teams game.
Yeah.
Is that just
are you talking about in college or in the NFL? Because
in the NFL that one game.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying
like the quick
he did
snap.
that exact thing in college too.
Yeah. Dude, he was so weird. Because last draft season I was working at Bleacher Report, and we were doing like I was breaking down basically the front 7 players defensively for him, and my buddy Nate Tice, who worked at AAF and 2 NFL teams, was breaking down the offensive skill guys. And the guy that we just did not get was Nwangwu, because it was like, he doesn't play offense, bro. And you're drafted him to play offense. He is
behind 2 of the best college running backs in college football at the time they were playing too.
Okay, so like that Bryce guy or whatever, Breece I can't
Hall.
Remember. Breece Hall. He's going to get drafted behind Nwangwu was, though. He's not going to get drafted in the first 3 rounds.
Right, but when Breece Hall was playing, when they were playing at the same time, Breece Hall was a 2nd-round prospect. He's just gotten worse now.
In
that's
theory, no, I don't think he's gotten
absolutely.
Worse. I just don't think that he's ever been that guy. I don't think he's ever been like an NFL back. Iowa State's weird. They were overrated the whole time. Campbell's fall at Iowa State, love it.
They were only overranked because Brock Purdy gets worse every year. That's the only reason they were overranked.
They run a fake offense. That RPO thing. It's a cancer running through the Big Ten now with PJ Fleck and stuff. It's just so gross, that RPO offense.
Fleck seems to have, according to everybody on the timeline, the aesthetically worst offense. So,
dude, did you see the Ohio State game to open the season?
Yeah, that was funny as hell.
Dude, they were just like, 6 offensive linemen.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're like, we're just going to beat the crap out of Ohio State. Yeah, they had that running back, and then he got
Mo Ibrahim was like,
that sucked.
I wouldn't say he was like a Heisman candidate, but he's like one of those dark horses.
Dude, he was going off.
Yeah.
He was going off for sure. And then he got lost for the season. That sucked.
Yeah.
Bummer for the kid.
But also, like, Ohio State hadn't figured out the quarterback situation yet, and so that would have been the perfect.
Sure hadn't. And then
about it.
the quarterback played hurt against Oregon. Now Oregon's the number 3 team in the country. Tell the kids.
Solely because of it.
Oregon's losing this weekend to Utah, by the way.
They better, because like Oregon is the disqualifying member of the C. Like Oregon is ruining the credibility of the CFP.
I don't disagree.
It
it's just funny to make fun of Cincinnati fans and people who are like, Cincinnati, we've anointed them as the small G5 and we will completely ignore UTSA.
Okay,
Advocates for small schools.
Okay, UTSA is what, like a 5-year-old program now? That's amazing.
Yeah. And they're not even playing their best quarterback either.
Because their first 2 draft picks
transfer that
ever. The first 2 draft picks ever were David Morgan and Marcus Davenport.
Yeah.
Wild.
Roadrunners, meet. That's their hashtag. They like hashtag it.
Yeah, well, we're gonna clip you saying that though.
Meet.
You got any other questions?
No, that's pretty much it. You answered. Cornerbacks can't cover anything. Packers by 2 scores.
Cornerbacks can cover. They just can't cover deep.
That's fine. You know what Aaron Rodgers wants to do? He's going to try to throw chunk plays. I don't know if you realize that. He's a gunslinger.
Really? Aaron? I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
Rodgers? No.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
He likes to take some shots.
He takes more shots against the Vikings than he does other teams, but he still has a lower yards per attempt against the Vikings than he does other teams.
You missed the joke. He likes to take some shots.
Joke. See, I'm immune to that.
All right. That's an hour and a half.
No, we got to get a score. Give me a score prediction.
35-24.
Jesus Christ. That's pretty high scoring game.
Yeah. Well,
the Packers are going to run their best both like top 5 pass defenses right now.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, things get different when you play good quarter. I guess. I mean, the Packers are coming off of a run against a bunch of good quarterbacks, but I think they're all going through their own individual stuff. Kyler got banged up a little bit. They had new guys in.
Are there any good teams in the NFL right now?
So
Cowboys,
if Dak doesn't get hurt for the 4th time this year. The Patriots, honestly, have been coming along. I know they don't have very much team speed offensively, but they're a pretty unique team. I still think that the Rams, the Packers, the Bucks are up there. The thing is the AFC. Like the AFC, I don't believe in any of these teams. I think the most
you don't believe in the Bills?
Dude, I think the most well-rounded teams are the Browns and the Raiders, and I don't even think they're very good. The Bills can't run the damn ball. That's going to hurt them.
They were better at running the ball this year than they were last year. Much better.
They weren't good last year either.
I'm just saying they've gotten better.
They play 11 personnel almost exclusively, and their tight end is essentially a wide receiver. Like I don't buy it. I think they're
a tight end who got like no receptions in college is just a wide receiver. I love it. It's amazing.
True. Dawson?
No, you're right. I think it's so funny.
He's athletic, but yeah,
he got like receiver. 3 targets in college, and they're like, yeah, you're a receiving tight end.
To be fair, they had AJ Brown, DK Metcalf.
Yeah,
there was another one too.
There was another one.
NFL. I would throw to DK Metcalf and AJ Brown more than Dawson Knox. Also,
well, he said that at the Senior Bowl, right? Like we asked him, like, hey, you didn't get any targets, and he's like, do you see who I was playing with? Are you kidding me? Why would they throw it to me?
He's like, buddy, they're built. The IG models were next to me. Like they were giving me a chance. They were giving me a chance.
All right, cool. Well, we got your score predictions. I called you a Nazi 3-4 times, so I think it was a good pod.
Yeah, solid.
Cool.
Trick.
All right. This has been Packers owner Justin Mosqueda. We got an exclusive interview with a member of the wealth ownership class that does not produce value, but produces wealth. So glad to have you on, Justice. Happy to see that you're going to be at the next shareholders meeting, suppressing wages. You can find his work over at Acme Packing Company, where he occasionally writes. In the future, he will probably be ruining another football league. At Jumosq, Jumosq. Anything else you want to plug?
Look, man, we had it figured out in the XFL. We didn't ruin it. The pandemic hit. I take offense. We were building something, Arif.
What is the likelihood that the XFL could have caused a pandemic?
Wow,
your silence speaks volumes. All right, anything else you want to plug, Justice?
Well, I want to answer the question first. Let me answer the question. Jeez, the media. Am I right? It depends how many games we would have let Mark Trestman coach. No, that's all I wanted to plug. Thanks,
All right.
Arif.
Sweet, thanks, Justice.
All right, let's go to the mailbag. And the first question's from Josh Wells, who says, what type of game do you foresee PFF's undisputed number one passer, Kirk Cousins, having against a Packers secondary that's been relatively stout? You basically already answered that, but I feel like the PFF's undisputed number one passer, Kirk Cousins, needed to be said at least twice on the show.
I mean, this is as good a time as any to jump into the PFF stuff. It comes up every year where PFF like produces a grade where you're like, I didn't see that at all. What's going on there? And I think no one would argue that Kirk Cousins is the best quarterback in the league right now. And technically, he is not the number one quarterback because his offensive grade is number 3 to Tom Brady and Kyler Murray. But number 1 as a passer in the passing category of the grade system is Kirk Cousins, which of course means that Tom Brady has outproduced Kirk Cousins in the run game per PFF. Now, that doesn't have to be as a runner, although I imagine the quarterback sneaks help. It could include run blocking, a thing Tom Brady famously does, ? So, that's something to just keep in mind, is that the total offensive package, Tom Brady more than Kirk Cousins. But if you only look at them as passers, no. So we talked about this a little bit with the Eric Kendricks stuff about how PFF might have some quirks in grading, but it doesn't really make sense for Kendricks because he's been graded so highly in their system in the past. This usually is not an issue at the quarterback position because they know what they're looking at. They've got a number of former quarterbacks have gone through the grading system and have audited it. They currently have, I believe, Bruce Gradkowski, as a huge part of the quarterback grading system. So it's not as if it's just like a bunch of nerds looking at football and just deciding yes or no. There's like a whole system. They have the Pro Coaches Network audits their grades every year as well, and that includes a number of current and former professional coaches. So like there's a system to their grades that lends it, I think, a greater degree of credibility than is generally given to them. And also they just don't do the work, I think, to explain why their grades have value, which is very frustrating to me. But there are sometimes some idiosyncrasies of the way the grading system works that could favor certain quarterbacking styles. Typically it doesn't. Typically if you've got like an explosive quarterback that's very boom or bust, the grades will kind of reflect that if it's net positive. But here, I think with the Vikings, I think Kirk Cousins is the PFF does not ding a quarterback if they miss seeing an open receiver and choose to throw to somebody else. That's just one of the decisions PFF made way back in 2008. That is a decision that they've continued to make as they've audited the grading system, and they will change how they grade. Like when Chris Cluey went through the way they grade punters, they changed their system, right? And so they will alter their grades according to the feedback that they get from position experts. But one of the decisions they decided to make was to not do anything about that, not to do anything about missing receivers open downfield. And this was something that they ran into when they were working with Trent Dilfer's Elite 11 camp. I think it's what it's called, it's the Elite 11 camp. And they at one camp they produced these grades, and Trent Dilfer's like personal grades had his number one quarterback was graded number 3 or something like by PFF, and his number 2 quarterback was graded number 1 by PFF. And so they were talking about it, and they said, "Hey, you didn't." And Dilfer said, "Hey, you didn't give this kid, marks for reading this play wrong and throwing to the wrong guy." And PFF was like, "No, we didn't. Our philosophy is, and this is generally borne out to be true, that evens out over time, because when other quarterbacks do that, they have an opportunity to increase their grade more, and they will overtake that player. But there are instances, individual game instances, where you could continuously take the second or third best read, produce a positive play, and still end up with a positive grade, even though there was a better play that you left out on the field. But other quarterbacks won't leave that out on the field, and so they will produce an even better grade. And so because it's a relative system where we normalize all the quarterbacks against each other, that evens out. And so that kind of makes sense to me as an explanation. But I think here is kind of one instance where it hasn't really evened out yet. Kirk Cousins has consistently found receivers he wants to go to. That's just weird. So it seems to be that the way the grading system works is that you get 95% of plays you get a 0 grade. You don't get any grade at all, right? You just do what you're supposed to do. That's the average grade. An above average grade is a plus 0.5. A below average grade is a minus 0.5. And they increase in increments all the way to plus 2.0, minus 2.0, and those are very rare. And those grades are essentially distributed among kind of a bell curve, right? And so 68%, well, I guess more, right? I just said 95%. But so it's not normal, but it is a bell, I guess. But a good chunk of those grades are 0, and then you get a somewhat large chunk of 0.5, not minus 0.5, so on and so forth. So you get some pretty rare minus 2, plus 2 plays. And then that gets kind of averaged out. They take into account situation for these grades. So if you're under pressure and you make a good play, that gives you a little bit of a bonus and stuff like that. And 3 different people are grading the same quarterback in an individual game, and they have to accord those grades with each other and have kind of a discussion about how that works out. And so that all happens, right? But if Cousins keeps on making 0 grade and plus 0.5 grade throws when he's leaving plus 1.0 throws or plus 1.5 throws out on the field, he is going to accumulate a positive grade over the guys that are generally getting 0 grades, average grades, right? And so he's going to end up with a higher grade than maybe when we take a look at it than he should, right? And so this is when like Mike Zimmer's criticism of Cousins from like a week ago comes into play, where he's like, hey, don't take the 5-yard throw on 2nd and 18. That's not going to get us anywhere, right? Which echoes like Jay Gruden's criticism of him way back when he was with Washington. It could just be that right now there is somewhat of a bias for success rate in the PFF grading system that gives low risk, medium reward quarterbacks a little bit of an advantage. So that might be what's happening. That typically doesn't happen with PFF. Some of the explosive guys can get ahead of some of the game manager types or whatever. But that seems to be what's happening with Kirk Cousins. It's very weird. But yeah, hey, there's some insight into the PFF grading system.
Let's go to Steezo, who asks, how could Mike Zimmer optimally use Bynum with Harrison back active this weekend?
Yeah, I asked if they were going to like try to put Bynum onto the field in some way, maybe as like a 3 safety package or something like that. And I don't know if I worded the question in a great way because Zimmer basically just said, yeah, Bynum's a great player. Harrison Smith is, we just need him out there. So he seemed to think that I was saying, hey, are you going to have Bynum replace Smith? And I think that's not really what I was trying to get at. But I do think that they will think about, I don't know if they'll actually do this, but they'll think about 3 safety packages. We've been seeing more 3 safety looks. Justice was just talking about the way the Packers do dime with 3 safeties instead of 6 corners or whatever it is, or 5 corners. No, 6 corners. And we just got out of the Ravens doing a bunch of 3 safety looks. And so there's a bunch of 3 safety kind of models to draw off of in order to design your defense, but you kind of want to install it in a good way. And so there may not be those packages in there in the playbook, but I think that they'll try to up the frequency of 3 safety looks to put Bynum on the field more. And that'll allow you to put Harrison Smith in the box a little bit, kind of hide the fact that, his speed isn't what it once was, but he's still got like incredible ability to kind of read stuff and get his hand on the ball and lay some big hits and stuff like that. And it gives them some blitzing opportunities. So I think that they're going to try and, occasionally take a linebacker off, especially if Anthony Barr is just not healthy enough to play, is they'll just have Kendricks as the dime linebacker and they'll take Vigil off the field and put Harrison Smith down there and have Cameron Bynum up. And I think that would not be bad. So I think that we might see some of those packages, but because it wasn't installed in camp and because the players don't have an enormous amount of familiarity with it, I don't think that they'll want to like lean on that too much.
Next question is from Corey Rug, who asks, Vikings fan in Milwaukee, just about everyone here is fed up with Rodgers. What should the Vikings do this week to further encourage this? Also, how will that backfire and Rodgers ends up staying with the team for 4 more years?
That's interesting. If the Vikings ran ads from local health agencies that that like decried Rodgers's like decision and stuff like that, like because you like it's not a political ad, right? So you don't have to disclose that it's paid for by the Vikings, right? It could just be like a public service announcement. Uh, um, that sounds like it's both an opportunity to take advantage of how much people, I guess, are upset with Rodgers, and also would be the perfect opportunity for it to blow up in the Vikings' face. Either some intrepid reporter like does some investigative journalism and digs down the source of the money, or B, kind of like a blowback effect. There's enough people in Wisconsin that are kind of resisting the vaccine, so then that makes that cancels Aaron Rodgers, right? And so that gives him sort of like an increased status because of all the criticism he's getting from like these public service announcements from like local hospitals and stuff like that are canceling Aaron Rodgers. So yeah, perfect opportunity to sully his name, perfect opportunity for the effort to sully his name to backfire and for people who support him to dig in, just kind of normal stuff like that.
Here's what I'm thinking.
Okay, good. I like this sentence.
The Vikings music selection this game
just includes the word shot a lot.
Hit me with your best shot.
Yeah.
Shot through the heart. Maybe some music from The Cure. We could do Big Shot, Billy Joel.
The Cure.
How to Save a Life by The Fray. Like there's options here is what I'm saying. That's how you do it. And of course Rodgers cooks us by like 48. So
yeah.
Which is let's go to Chris's question because it's around the same topic. Is Rodgers the patron saint of the passive aggressive corner?
I mean, like, honestly, yeah,
I don't want to see him on my prayer candles, but at the same time, he fits well on a prayer candle.
Right, yeah, especially with the hair, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, yeah, that one's like hard to deny.
It's getting harder every week. Kyle Slaby asks, what separates a QB like Rodgers from Cousins is an intrinsic aggressiveness and confidence. I believe the lack of that same trait is what stops Kirk from also being a conspiracy nut too. If we convince Kirk to jump aboard the NFT train, will this snowball into top quarterback play?
First of all, your confidence that Kirk is not a conspiracy nut, I believe, is not extraordinarily well-founded. That is not me saying that Kirk is a conspiracy nut. That is me saying that we have no evidence. That it's just that Kirk hasn't expressed these views, and that there are people in his family that have expressed these views, that there's a conspiracy afoot. They are a completely different flavor of conspiracy than Rodgers, which actually Justice and I, of course, we went into it. So you already listened to that portion of the show. But yeah, 100% chance that I shouldn't say 100% chance. Very good chance that Kirk Cousins actually, in fact, is dabbling in some alternative theories about how the universe works.
It's very possible.
Yeah, and so there's that. Then on top of that, the specific question about like NFTs, I mean, Rodgers is like, you can't, I mean, like, I think Rodgers is shilling for crypto.com, right? Because Tom Brady's doing FTX, but I think Rodgers might be doing crypto. I know Rodgers is into crypto. I'll say that. But yeah, I think Rodgers is the NFT guy. So if Kirk Cousins gets into NFTs, he will be behind Rodgers on that curve, and then Rodgers already exists in that space, right? Because he's friends with Joe Rogan, right? Like I think he's already all like up to date on crypto, and that Cousins will be playing left-handed in the crypto universe, metaverse, if you will. So yeah, I don't know if NFTs is kind of the way to do it. I think maybe kind of the wellness conspiracy, like that I think is kind of the area that you could really pump up the conspiraciness for Kirk Cousins, kind of the anti-Western science wellness space is kind of an area I think Cousins could really like dig deep into and do a lot of conspiracizing. That's definitely not a word.
We're just going to go with it. Christopher Wiley asks, which QB is more unlikable to their own fan base? Rodgers or Cousins? Follow-up question, how do we handicap to prop bet of which QB will say something stupid next?
Oh, man. Cousins, like, clams up. That's the thing, right? Like, you would have to bet on Aaron Rodgers doing a weekly podcast with Pat McAfee for at least 8, but probably, a couple more weeks beyond that, where he is going to be a little bit more unfiltered versus Cousins just doing the presser availability that Rodgers already does. He already does presser availability. Cousins does one as well. And so there's just much more opportunity for Rodgers to kind of shoot himself in the foot. So I would say that the odds of something cancelable coming out of their mouths, I think that the odds are just much higher for Rodgers going forward, just because just it's a numbers game, and I think that they've both indicated like a proclivity to do something along those lines. So I don't think that you can say that there's like very good odds that it's going to be Cousins to do to self cancel, as it were. I think. Jesus. So how do we handicap that? What do you think, James?
How do you hit? It's really hard to. Like I don't know.
It would have to be like a money line. Who says it first, right? Or you could do like a instead of a point spread, a week spread, like how many weeks over under.
I think the week one ends up being a little bit easier to bet on, because otherwise it seems like it's too. No one would take Kirk on that, because Kirk just doesn't talk. So
it would be like what, Kirk plus 25 weeks, like a quarter of it, or it's half a year, Reef. Half a year?
I think it would be easier to do like through the end of the season. So
sure.
What?
Okay, so
10 weeks?
Yeah, Kirk plus 10. Okay, yeah.
I think you could figure it out by weeks, because I'm confident Aaron Rodgers is going to try his best to like shut up about anything not football related, and like not book club related for the next couple of weeks. But he does have that platform, so you feel comfortable you're going to say something stupid.
Yep.
That's that might as well just be the name of this episode. Bishop Sycamore alumnus asks, so I hear the Vikings have a higher DVOA than the Packers. Well, I'm currently in dead last in one of the Norse Code fantasy football leagues, but have a 6-ish in scoring. Does this make me the 2021 Vikings of Norse Code fantasy?
I feel like there are so many people in our fantasy leagues that are the 2021 Vikings of the Norse Code fantasy league.
I like how it's just about everybody who gets paid to cover the Vikings in the Hell League is all like in the basement. We're all terrible, and we're losing to an opera singer from Canada. So I just want to point that out. This is no disrespect, Nolan. I'm just saying that the Vikings analysts are not bringing their A game this year. Although I'm like in 6th, they're 7th in that league now. So I'm playing him this week. So I'm trying. I got 30 points off a safety tonight.
Oh, Jesus. But yeah, like that follows, right? Being 6th in scoring, but last in the league. But the Vikings are like, it's kind of like a grade up from that, right? Because the Vikings are near 500. They have a game to get into 500 if they win this, but are like, top 10-ish in DVOA, right? So they're like at 16th and they're like 8th, right? In terms of, or whatever it is, like in their DVOA, right? Like, because the Packers are 12th, the Vikings are, what is it? 8th, maybe? Sure. Let's just go with that. 9th. Okay. So yeah, it's that, but it's like a great. So there's actually probably someone else in the league that is like 500 and should be like 2nd or 3rd. So I'm sorry, Bishop Sycamore alumnus, despite your clearly bad luck, which I don't know, like that's just kind of how the league works. Like I don't know how else to explain it to you. That's what the league is. But despite your bad luck, you're not the Vikings.
We're not even sure entirely how the league works, and we've been playing it for how many weeks now?
Yeah, I just want to say that the league. The only thing I know about the league is that it is luck based. That's all. Everything else in terms of how to explain it, like even with kind of the way the scoring works, it is asinine to draft Justin Tucker in the first round. Yet somebody on this podcast did it last year and won, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like, well, I mean, we won it, right? Because it's a collectively
I'm currently in first in the original league right now. So like,
right, so we're in first.
Yeah, we as a collective. This even includes Dusty. We are all
even includes Dusty.
We are doing well. We are fighting the good fight. Not fighting the good fight as well as we'd like in the Hell League, but we're getting there.
Yeah, right.
Speaking of which, Nolan Kaler asks, question for North Code. How can a Reef claim to be a CFL expert and not correct a guest when he says the word Regina wrong? J'accuse.
Okay, fair enough. When it happened, my instinct was to correct, but and I didn't realize this, James too, because he has earned proxy Canadian birthright by being a stepfather to a quarter Canadian child.
Oh, no, this is full blood.
Full blood. Oh, wow. Okay,
yeah,
great.
I have a my 8-year-old is 1/4 Canadian.
Right. Okay. So yeah, when that occurs, of course, you get an instructional DVD about how to pronounce a bunch of Canadian things, and so I didn't realize that James had
VHS, but yes.
Oh, right. Laserdisc.
It was like one of those orange VHSs you got from the library when you like got old Nickelodeon stuff on tape.
Oh, yeah.
It was like that.
Yeah, having fun isn't hard when you have a library card. One of those VHS tapes. We both had that instinct, and we decided to let it slide. Didn't realize it would hurt our healthy fan base of Canadian listeners. A statement that is both true and somewhat ironic, but yeah, we've got a lot of Canadian listeners, and we should know better, right? Brett Jones is from Regina, but it is like a difficult, like it's an awkward correction, right? It's like, hey, you didn't say that like the word vagina enough. If you could do that again, but with more vagina, we'd appreciate it. That's just a tough correction to make, you know?
I just am reminded of the Deadpool line about Regina rhymes with fun. So I'm just going to walk away. Andrew Shad asks, in honor of Crypto.com Arena, where does MOA Field at the Metrodome now rank on the list of worst naming rights deals? Considerably, well, I think MOA Field still ranks pretty high on the worst, considering how long they were able to keep that. Because they weren't able to keep it for long because they tore it down right afterwards.
Right, yeah. They signed, and I'm sure they got some of that money kicked back after the stadium got torn down. But like, yeah, we would still call it the Metrodome because that is its name. It's just the field that was MOA, and you often did not use the word of the field, right? Which no one
outside of the main broadcast or the K-Fan people were calling it that. No one.
Right, exactly. That was also the deal with Mile High, right? It was Invesco Field, right?
Yep, Invesco Field at Mile High.
Yeah, which is also pretty bad. But for some reason, I think that got more play than MOA Field at the Metrodome, which sucks because Mile High is clearly a more iconic name. But I don't think the Crypto.com naming deal is bad because everyone got mad about it. And so now we know about Crypto.com. I mean, I know about it because I get mobile game ads served for Crypto.com like constantly. Like I've had it served to me for so many years that I've apparently accidentally downloaded it onto my phone. So like they clearly want their name out there, but they did a pretty good job. Like both Staples and Crypto.com got their money's worth immediately after it occurred because people who had never been to a Staples expressed brand loyalty to Staples, right? And that helps. Right. But then also a bunch of people just started talking about Crypto.com. Like FTX wishes it could have had that exposure. Like that Tom Brady ad is not doing nearly the legwork that the Crypto.com stadium deal is doing. So that actually I don't think changes the rankings at all because I think that it helps them just from the controversy. MOA Field is it's awful in terms of the money that they got out of it. There's like a worse one, right? Like there's one where it's the stadium is sponsored and then the field has a different sponsor. I'm trying to remember who it is, but that exists too.
And
those are the worst
it's
deals.
somehow not JMU, which has everything sponsored.
Yeah. Oh my God. The cheesesteak first downs and the Domino's timeouts and the Bojangles tailgate, and that's only half the sponsorships that occur during a game.
Yeah, it was everything. I'm confident the penalty flags were had sponsors too. It was fantastic.
Yeah, the challenge flags probably.
Yeah.
Sure.
Doug Nasby asks, if you think about it, the NFL is an entertainment business. Do some teams, examples, the Jets, the Texans, and the Jaguars, exist solely to provide entertainment outside of regularly scheduled games? Like on Wednesday, for example, any entertainment provided during a game is purely extra. See Mike White Week 8. The real entertainment is starting Joe Flacco, the unvaccinated Joe Flacco now.
Right.
And
which is why he was, that explains why he wasn't like active last week.
And trading DeAndre Hopkins for parking passes.
Okay, so I love the idea that some teams exist for like wrestling style storylines, right? Because at first I thought the first part of the question I was thinking tomato cans and jobbers, but no, you're talking about people who provide storylines more than they provide, the ability to actually compete on the field. I like that, except that like the GMs of these teams do get fired. Like they don't want that. They don't want to be the storyline team. They want what the Browns now have, right? Which that does include some storylines. Don't get me wrong. The storylines coming out of Browns are like B+, A- stuff. Like it's good storyline stuff. But like the Browns started succeeding and their players are good and they made the playoffs and won in the playoffs. And like the Jets, Texans, and Jaguars desperately want to be there and are just accidentally creating this. So I don't think they exist solely to provide entertainment. I just think that when you've got a league where it is so obvious when you make like a really bad move, when you've got that league where information creates market inefficiencies really difficult to pursue, that if you kind of just make that mistake and just make a hugely bad bet that is just funny and obvious, that's just a natural occurrence. You've got 32 teams, 25 of them are run pretty competently, one or two of them are run really well. And so it's the other like 7 or 8 teams that will and those teams will change, right? Like the Texans haven't always been a bad team. The Jaguars started out as a pretty competitive team. The fact that they became one of the worst teams in football, like in 2014, it was like breaking some model I was running, how bad they were. And then was like briefly competitive in 2017 because of the good place, and then was bad again. Like that just happened, right? The Jets, of course, are always bad, but the Browns were too, and that changed. So I don't think the teams exist solely to provide entertainment. It's just that the NFL is so competitive that missteps are obvious and therefore entertaining.
It is weird to think of the idea that a team could I think it helps write off the idea that the teams are bad. You're like, oh yeah, they're bad on purpose. Like that at least helps. Like, okay, well, I don't have to put worries in or whatever. Like the Lions, for instance, God help them, they really wanted like a 100-yard rusher this year. They desperately want to win. Like there's some moment in which
I totally forgot how committed they were to that 100-yard rusher,
and just they want it so badly, and after a while you want it for them. Like every week I'm cheering for Dan Campbell to get that win. Oh my God,
when he cries in like what was it, the 6th loss? He just started crying and I was like, oh God, I hope so. I hope they win. And then like the closest they got was a tie. Oh.
Hey, they're not going winless this year. Well, I mean,
they are.
Well, yeah, they're just not going to lose every game. How about that?
Yeah.
Let's go to Legend of Korra, who asks, at what point do I stop this vicious cycle of passing down heartbreak and pain and convince my kids to cheer for another team? Joking, only kind of. I got my son a hat from the Ravens game. So, like...
Was it a Ravens hat?
It was, actually. It was like a winter hat or whatever. It just had like the Ravens logo on the front of it. Like, he loves the hell out of it. He's like, this is great. It's like, I think he just likes more the fact I got it from the stadium than the fact that, whatever. Like, I got one of the stepkids a hat that looked awesome from the Seahawks game. And it was, and like he's not a Seahawks fan or whatever. It was just like, oh, this is a cool looking hat thing. So you can do little things like that to help, spread spread awareness of the
spread
team
awareness of other teams. Hey, you can cheer. Look at the Ravens.
Yeah,
have you heard about the Ravens?
Like when I was a kid, my dad ended up getting it was one of the first seasons of the Rockies, and he ended up going out to Denver for some conference, and ended up coming home and had a hat from the Rockies game, and I went, great. I had this weird thing in the back of my head, like, okay, I kind of like the Rockies because I had a hat of theirs when I was a kid. Meanwhile, I would watch Cubs games with him and commiserate for most of my childhood. But I had the Rockies hat. I had another team in the back of my head, so this wouldn't be a bad time to do that. I don't know that the Vikings are going to be good for a bit. We'll see, but I don't know if they're going to be able to lose in an NFC Championship game again for a couple of years. Let's go to Nick Olson, who asks, have you ever genuinely tried to move an inanimate object with just your mind?
Okay, so this question needs an age qualifier, because every person on the planet has done it, but before the age of 14, right? When I was in Taekwondo in Grand Forks, so I didn't move until I was 11, so I was still in Grand Forks. So I must have been 10 when I was doing this. Me and 2 other kids that were in the same Taekwondo class were super into Dragon Ball Z, because obviously we were, and we wanted to fly, which is essentially the same thing as this question. And so we would talk about it, but they would talk about it loudly. And I was at the age where I knew I would look like an idiot if someone not into Dragon Ball Z heard me. And so I would keep on trying. I would keep on finding ways to get this conversation out of everybody else's earshot. And sometimes it didn't work, and I had people stare at me, other kids in the class, right? That was a difficult kind of thing to navigate while I was trying to get taken seriously by other people in Taekwondo. Because, it's a class on how to beat people up. So you don't want to be the weird one. That, obviously.
And being the weird one at the Y is kind of a bit of an issue.
Yeah. So, oh yeah, we get to spar? Yeah. Come on here, Dragon Ball Z. Let's see how Saiyan you are. Get over here. I don't want any of this.
Wait, what year would this have been? I'm just curious. And was it at the Y, or did you go to the other?
No, it was at the Y.
It was at the Y. Okay, I was trying to figure
on the
out
second floor in those gyms. Yeah,
I was just trying to figure out because I knew a number of people who ended up doing stuff at the Y, but I was dating a Taekwondo expert in high school that was going to tournaments, and I wasn't sure if you had actually if during that period of time. This would have been very late 90s that you would have been beaten up by my girlfriend. So I was just trying to figure out.
There's no way they would have had a high schooler spar against a 10-year-old.
This is Grand Forks. All things are possible through the power of Ben DiNucci.
Hey, that's actually a pretty fair point.
Yeah.
But no, it seems unlikely that happened. But yeah.
Have you ever tried to... anybody who's made a table... or has been working on an IKEA thing or whatever, and notices that the screws are on the other side of the room, may have had that Skywalker moment of, all right, close your eyes, reach out with can I get this thing?
I don't want to get up.
I do not want to get up, because if I do, these 3 pieces are going to fall. It's very possible. Yeah.
The worst is when you're in that situation where you're constructing a table or whatever, and you're man, I set the screw at the other side of the room. I could really use it over here. Just, God, it would be great. And then it moves because the room shifts, or the temperature, or there's wind or air pressure, and the screw just rolls a little bit, right? Around its point. And you're just I did that.
Yep, you got encouraged, and now for the rest of your life, you are chasing the dragon of this
of telekinesis.
I want to feel that feeling again. It'll never feel the same. Get that telekinesis nod in the middle of the park. Jacob Wander asks, for James's ham corner, would you rather see a ham option as Number 1, a play in which CJ Ham is the quarterback and executes an RPO. 2, an alternative to turkey at Thanksgiving dinner. Also, James's ham corner sounds disgusting. I'm gonna end up eating turkey at Thanksgiving. That's just the way it ends up happening. So I'm gonna accept that. I may make turkey for my dinner, but CJ Ham seems to play every other position on offense. Why not throw him in at quarterback for a play just for fun?
They've lined him up out wide. They've used him to replace Irv Smith, like explicitly. So he's a tight end, fullback, halfback. So yeah, really all we've got left are quarterback and offensive line.
He lines up.
We know he can do the offensive line. There's no question about that.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll truck a guy. So seeing him lined up under center, that may be it for me. That might have to be. I'll be chasing that dragon for the rest of my podcasting career. That is a bit too good. Ryan Menson asks, for James's grilling corner, with the weather starting to get a bit brisk, my neighbor put their grill away, which surprised me because I keep mine out and continue to use it periodically over the winter. Should one use their grill over the winter? If so, what are the best things to grill/smoke in the winter? Also, what is the proper winter grilling attire, and why is it the outfit that Bud Grant wore during the coin flip of the 2016 wildcard game?
I don't understand Bud Grant. Like, it is perfectly in line for him to be like wearing short sleeves in the middle of a game where there's like frostbite warnings for fans. But that is wild to me. Okay, so James obviously is going to have the floor for a little bit longer, but I do want to add this. There was one winter where we didn't put our grill away and we didn't tarp it, and so just the bottom of the grill just rusted out entirely, and we just had to buy a new grill. So if you are going to keep your grill out over the winter, use it. Grill with your grill over the winter if you do it. That sounds awesome to grill over the winter. That sounds great. I like it. I like the idea. Never done it. At least with the grill I own. I've grilled in the winter, but not with the grill I own. So yeah, sure, use it. But if you're gonna have it, like, use it and clear off the snow every possible opportunity you have to clear off the snow.
Yeah, it's not a. I've joked that the reason I have a propane grill is because I like to grill in the winter. So that ends up being my kind of like my reasoning for it existing. And my propane grill doesn't rust as easily as the smoker does. So your best bet here is, like, I hate cooking chicken inside. I just hate it. It just I don't like it. I prefer to put it on the grill. So I'll throw chicken breasts or chicken thighs, whatever, outside. I like to smoke chicken thighs more than I like to smoke chicken breasts. So I don't like smoking stuff because because I don't have the electric oven outside, the pellet grill. So I've got the sidecar, and if I have the sidecar, I have to pay attention to the temperature, and that doesn't work as well in 30 to 20 degree temperatures outside. So what I do is I use the propane and just go at it that way, and I have a pretty good time with it. Although I make sure that I turn the propane off every time because I don't know when the next time it is I'm going to use it. So I do like the propane. I love grilling a steak out in the middle of like 30 degree winter. Like, that's fun for me. I enjoy that. That's usually my go-to for the winter. It's like, hey, it's just warm enough to be able to do this. I'll put a hot dog on for the kid and then go and put the steak on. So I tend to do more major things like steak and everything else. If I had a pellet grill, or if I was wanting to deal with being outside for longer periods of time, I could see myself doing, ribs or something else. But I will tell you that it's not that much fun to do the grilling thing outside for longer periods of time when you have to pay attention to the temperature. If you can just regulate it with propane, it's much easier, which sounds like a cop-out, I realize, but this is... And I've already said, if Don wants to go and get me a pellet smoker, and according to the thread, Slaby wants to throw in on this, so... but...
It's going to take more than two people for that to happen.
Yeah, it's like, if they want to pass the hat around, I'll document my experience with it. But I tend to just do like chickens and steak and some vegetables do out there, especially asparagus. But like otherwise, I try to keep it fairly simple. It's more the novelty than it is the food itself. Like you get the neighbor who walks by, like, really, you're grilling outside? Like, yeah, I'm in sweatpants. What the hell? Like this is why is this your concern? So that's what I would do. I would go mainly that, like bratwurst and sausages are always a good idea too, because you can be in and out there pretty quickly. That's usually what, 6 minutes maybe. So there's options, but I wouldn't go too crazy. I wouldn't do anything that required a bunch of basting and worker in it or whatever. So, but it really depends on what kind of grill you have. I personally just go for the bigger ticket items, much like chicken breast or steak or something, and maybe a side dish. So that would be my suggestion. Ricardo asks, while listening to your most recent episode, with its many thanks to supporters, something occurred to me. You guys release multiple episodes a week, make me laugh, and occasionally read these rambling emails I send. This means that for a fraction of the cost, I'm getting substantially more entertainment and interaction from my monthly support of Norse Code than any of these fools who keep buying stock, quote unquote, in the Packers. So thank you. Now a question so the corpse of Dusty doesn't get mad.
Just to clarify, he is alive. Yeah, he was on the last episode.
He's getting increasingly annoyed at the comments about him being dead. Like that's actually kind of funny. So, but question so the corpse of Dusty doesn't get mad. Why is it there's not more public outcry, or at least larger, bolder print being used to point out the absurdity of the multi-million-dollar business soliciting donations for its business expenditures? Seems like if Amazon started panhandling for gas money for its trucks, people would at least be a little irritated. I suppose it is similar to teams getting public funding for stadiums, but at least then there is no dog and pony show about what is being sold. Maybe folks in Wisconsin are just afraid of the Packers don't get their money, then the state will only be known for manufacturing cheese and murder, not necessarily in that order.
Before Joe McCarthy, Wisconsin was known for being a laboratory of democracy. That's like wild. Like that now it is the cheese and murder state. That's what you're known for.
If you remember your Wayne's World history, Alice Cooper proceeded to explain that Milwaukee, the good land, was also the place that elected not one but two socialist mayors.
You're right. Yeah, and that's where sewer socialism comes from. But also, if you remember from Dogma, it is the place that is worse than hell.
Well, the state of Wisconsin, that's what they were referring to, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so quick takes on this one. One, okay, so I dunk on the Packers thing all the time, but it is probably better than the public. So here's what you're like kind of weighing. You're weighing the scam of calling it ownership versus kind of the involuntary nature of the taxation for like the 40% of people who don't support public funds being used for a stadium and not being able to opt in at all. And like when put like that, I just feel like the scam of ownership is actually probably better, but it is funnier because you opt into it, even though that makes it probably a better model for whatever it is they're doing in terms of securing funding publicly. Also, like, it is funny to me to think of like a franchise that would be valued at, $1 billion, right? Like probably $1.5 billion. Having a Patreon, right?
At a time when they were just fined by the NFL.
Right, exactly.
Like I had what's funny, I didn't know they were going to do a stock sale. I at the live show I had written in that the Packers were going to have a stock sale because they were about to get fined by the NFL something large. And I was having some problems and couldn't read that portion when we did that part of the live show. And then, lo and behold, here comes the stock sale. Like, oh, that's incredibly funny. The whole thing is dumb, but it does make a few people on this planet, including our guest, happy. So good for them, but it's still dumb. Like I can't get behind.
There's no question that it's dumb, but it is like a self-selecting dumb, right? Like, no one is being dumb on your behalf, although the dumb that they are being on your behalf is like much more understandable.
Can
right?
let's clear something up for a second, because I feel like you would know the answer to this question. So is this sentence true? As a result of the stock sale and a kind of public ownership, quote unquote, of the team, is that why we have a look at some of the team and some of the NFL's financial information? Is that actually a true statement?
Yes. Due to the nature of union arrangements, the NFLPA would have access to that during negotiations, but the fact that it is public allows kind of a greater public discussion of the type of revenue that the NFL puts out, which is interesting because they are not taxed. I briefly mentioned this at the intro to the episode. They're not taxed like a nonprofit, even though they are incorporated as one. In the state of Wisconsin, they're taxed like a for-profit, but they have to disclose publicly that they all of their like internals, right? Because they're a nonprofit. It's like a very weird, they're not actually getting anything out of this arrangement sort of deal. Like, it's just negatives for the NFL, which I guess is a good thing. But like, it is like very weird and awkward, the way it kind of works out. And it is an ownership model that, by the way, is not allowed per the NFL bylaws. But because the Packers are like an original team, they got grandfathered in essentially into this arrangement. So this ownership model cannot exist for any future teams. You cannot dissolve a team's ownership into this ownership model. It cannot exist. So you will not find another team like the Packers in the NFL, or probably any other American sport, right? Like, I don't think there's any other team like that. So yeah, that is why the numbers are a little bit more public, is because the Packers are required to publish their books. So yeah, there's that. But the thing that I wanted to get into was just like, is it dumber to believe studies that indicate that stadiums produce an economic benefit and therefore are worth investing tax dollars into, or to believe that you're an owner of the Packers? And I think unequivocally the answer is number two. But number one is not crazy smart, and someone else is making the decision on your behalf. That's the weird part of it, is that, well, which I guess is how just government works, right? But it's just like, if you conclude that the studies are not very good, and there is a lot of really good evidence to that point, right? That indicate that there's an economic benefit. You can lobby the democratic process. That can play out, right? But someone else ultimately is making the decision on your behalf, and they disagree with the data on that. I'm making like a super libertarian argument. It's going to be used against me in like 10 months, I'm sure. But yeah, that's a decision that's being made on your behalf. Whereas you can just choose not to be dumb and not buy Packers stock. Like, that's just, Justice did not make that choice. Not super shocked.
He definitely made a different choice.
Yeah, and so for that, Justice gets the benefit of flying into Lambeau during the shareholders meeting and pretending to vote, and also flying into Lambeau into the one corner of the one gift shop that allows you to buy Packers gear for owners. If you've listened to the interview, Justice has not been to Green Bay, so this is not a benefit that he has in the past been able to take advantage of, and in the future his ability to take advantage of it seems kind of sketchy, seems unlikely. So those are the benefits. He does not receive any revenue, right? They don't pay out revenue, which is why it's kind of a fake ownership model. The amount of control that you get over the organization is infinitesimal. It's so minuscule as to be none. So you can like essentially vote the president in as the giant shareholders meeting if you're physically there. But like, no one has controlling, like the board of the Packers have more controlling share than the people who vote for them. So it's not really a vote. And so that's what ownership confers you. You do not move ahead in your place in line for a season ticket. You don't get better seats. You don't get better anything except merch. You get a piece of paper that says it's a personal seat license, but for merch.
I don't think I've heard a better explanation of what this really does. It is that is fantastic, and that is going to be how we are going to end this episode of Norse Code. Arif, what do you have to plug?
I just posted my piece on Mike Zimmer being pretty good against Aaron Rodgers historically. So that's over at The Athletic. I also am really happy with the piece I published on the way the Vikings blitzed Justin Herbert and the Chargers. So please check that out. That's not getting as much play as I'd hoped. So please read it, click on it, whatever. But that's overall at The Athletic, theathletic.com/author/Arif-Hassan. Well, I don't think I was on any other podcast this week. So just follow me on Twitter at Arif-Hassan NFL.
Well, that's going to be it for this episode of Norse Code. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Again, we just released a bonus episode, a super long bonus episode, if you'd like to hear some background stuff from the last couple of weeks, over at Patreon, patreon.com/Norse Code. $3.50 a month gets you all the bonus stuff. So, for Reef, my name is James. Thank you guys so much for listening. And please remember, case cookus. And we will be back next week.
Norse Code is the largest and only division of Norse Code LLC. You can find Norse Code on the Daily Norseman, SB Nation's Vikings blog at dailynorseman.com. You can also find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever fine podcasts are aggregated. Our Vikings blogger extraordinaire and generally useful human is Arif Hassan, and he can be found on Twitter at Arif Hassan NFL. I am your producer and co-host, and my name is James Pagashnik. You can find me at the show's official Twitter feed at NorseCodeDN. If you'd like to donate a few bucks to the show, you can make your one-time donation at paypal.me/NorseCode, or a recurring monthly contribution can be made by visiting patreon.com/NorseCode. Any questions or comments that won't fit in a tweet can also be sent to NorseCode